Chapter 325. Luo Nan was running in front, breathing smoothly. Crag Burst was tearing apart a certain scoundrel who had taught him how to transfer. The two were connected through the hex ear, but Crag Burst howled in his excitement. You said transferring is the only way to be safe. What's going on now? Virus? Is the Martial Empress so bored that she planted a virus in her balls? Oh right, she doesn't have any balls. The latter half of his voice was very low, but it soon rose up again. You don't know? I listened to your fucking introduction and used your transcoder to transfer the files. Huh? Of course it's yours. Why would I use it for anything else? F***CK. You're wailing. Crag Burst grinned as he spoke, reversing his mood. Oh my. I heard about your super high-end super high-capacity archive. It turned to ashes just like that? That's quite a pity. Crag Burst ended the communication with a big laugh. He felt that he finally had someone to take with him, even though the person was a bit thinner. He impatiently explained to Luo Nan, it's that bastard bamboo pole. He's really hurt himself this time. He reaped what he sowed. Luo Nan didn't have that kind of agitated experience. He wasn't a veteran like Crag Burst or Bamboo Pole. He just followed along and asked, isn't it troublesome to transfer from the psychic wave network to the internet? I heard so. But it's fine as long as we know how to use the tools. Bamboo Pole wrote a few small programs that are quite easy to use. Of course, he's screwed this time. Is it a simple information transfer, or is it an interference and coupling between the mental and material planes? Don't. Let's not talk about this. You can just ask Bamboo Pole later. Crag Burst immediately called for a stop. He wasn't interested in pure theory at all, especially with Luo Nan's fierce reputation. If Luo Nan really got up early in the morning, it was as if he had drunk 3 liters of alcohol. His day would be wasted. Crag Burst admitted defeat, but Luo Nan was a bit regretful. Right now, he was very interested in all phenomena and theories that could involve format conversion, interference coupling, and so on. His breakthrough 2 days ago had opened a door to him. The door was full of treasures, but there were far too many treasures. He hadn't completely sorted them out yet. He needed to continue working hard. Luo Nan's morning running exercise had just begun. He thought for a bit and changed the topic. I still haven't thanked you. Crag Burst waved his hand. How could that be? This sort of mission is easy and convenient, and you get points too. Only your secretary would be so considerate in arranging it. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the analysis of winning and losing factors and the mentality of facing the enemy. What you told me was really useful and helped me a lot. Let's talk about some experience. If we can use it, it means that we have a tacit understanding. Crag Burst rubbed his big bald head. He was quite proud of himself. He gave Luo Nan another thumbs up. You were able to find a concept that suits you so quickly. You're quite amazing. Oh right, I heard from Zhang Yingying that it's called coupling. To be precise, it's formatting theory. Coupling is a type of application. It turns theory into reality. Luo Nan knew that Crag Burst didn't want to listen to theory, so he didn't say too much. According to Crag Burst's suggestion, one must have an unshakable conviction when facing a powerful enemy. That conviction must be established upon one's most irreplaceable advantage. Luo Nan didn't hesitate too much. He chose formatting theory. Only a complete set of laws and rules established upon the foundation of formatting theory could be an irreplaceable element fused into his bloodline. It was formatting theory that brought him inconceivable experiences. It presented the marvels of the dark side of the world to him. It allowed him to know what others didn't know. It allowed him to see what others didn't see. It also gave him the authority of certain laws and rules. And what was even more fortunate was that he was able to comprehend his mother's coupling theory in time. He borrowed the heart lantern of the eye's orifice that Xiu Xinyu had taught him to put the capital of formatting theory into practice. He could completely use a lofty tone to speak to an ability user like Black Beetle like that. You can't see what I can see. You don't know what I know. You can't compare to what I can control. You can't reach where I'm at. Frankly speaking, this feeling wasn't bad. Luo Nan grinned and laughed. The temperature flowing through his veins seemed to increase somewhat. On the other side, Crag pondered for a bit. He grunted twice and then opened his mouth to speak. It's obviously good to be able to find a conviction. However, it's not enough to just look at victory. You have to look at defeat. There's no one in this world who can win forever and never lose. It's said that President Ouyang was beaten to the point of questioning life when he was young. When that time comes, it will be time for you to be tested. Luo Nan turned his head to glance at him and nodded, I'm prepared. A bit of mental preparation is absolutely not enough. Crag gave a piece of advice as someone with experience. It's hard for even the calmest person to thoroughly discover their own flaws during victory. But after a crushing defeat, mistakes will be magnified. It's far too hard to maintain a normal state of mind. Therefore, it needs to be tough. It needs to be quenched and polished over and over again. In the end, the existing structure needs to be completely smashed to pieces. Only then can a good piece of steel be refined. The most taboo thing is to sway left and right. It's self-denial. I know what you mean. Luo Nan continued to smile. The warm breath he exhaled from his mouth and nose was as smooth and long as before. But don't worry. I have no other choice. The blow of failure had arrived a long time ago. The current situation of the 3 generations of the Luo family was the clearest manifestation of this. But since his grandfather, mother, and perhaps even his father, all of his flesh and blood had poured their blood and sweat into formatting theory, Luo Nan was destined to be the driver and reviser of formatting theory before it crashed, even if it appeared to be a sports car that had gone out of control at high speeds. Therefore, Luo Nan didn't have the powerful conviction to use formatting theory to defeat all powerful enemies. He only had the resolve to live with it and die with it. Luckily, the road ahead was still marked by coupling and the existence of gear. There was still light. There was still hope. Luo Nan originally wanted to say something after his smile faded, but he didn't say anything in the end. His feet didn't stop. He raised his head to look ahead. The morning light gradually revealed itself behind the flower walls of the courtyard in the residential area. Even though there were layers upon layers of high-rise buildings, the clear outline of the sky was reflected. He could see everything clearly. Luo Nan jogged a few laps with Crag before returning home. Even though today was Sunday, everyone in the family had their own plans. They didn't wake up too late. Even Mo Peng yawned as he lay on the living room sofa, playing games to pass the time. He didn't see Luo Nan enter the house. His uncle, Mo Hai Heng, was busy in the kitchen. He would insist on cooking whenever he had the time to prevent the entire family from suffering from the torment of the AI housekeeper or his aunt. As for his aunt, Mrs. Luo Shuqing, she just laid out the tableware and occasionally directed the AI housekeeper to tidy up the house. Luo Nan greeted her and went upstairs to wash up. Luo Shuqing just nodded. She didn't say much. It was hard to describe the cheerfulness between her brows. She glanced at Mo Peng playing games in the next moment and spoke in a cold voice, "Come over and help." Mo Peng raised his head in shock, but he didn't dare to let out a fart when he saw his mother's face. He tossed away the handheld terminal and walked over to act like an obedient child. The atmosphere in the house was a bit oppressive. It was like this all the way until mealtime. It was no wonder that such a situation occurred. Yesterday was Saturday. The family went to the sanatorium to visit their grandfather, Luo Yuandao. But it was different from last time. They practically didn't have the chance to have direct contact with Luo Yuandao. According to the sanatorium, the degenerative symptoms of the old man's central nervous system were becoming more and more severe. It further deepened the condition of his schizophrenia, causing his mood to be very unstable. Moreover, it was still worsening. If this continued, his mind and body would probably quickly collapse. There would be no possibility of saving him. Even though this was a result that could be predicted long ago, it was still hard for people to accept when it actually happened. Luo Shuqing was the only relative who was allowed to visit for a short period of time yesterday. Her mood entered an extremely downcast state after she personally witnessed her father's various conditions. Her mood didn't improve by much after a night. Because of this, the dining table was strangely silent during breakfast time. Luo Nan buried his head in eating. Thin slices of beef were paired with millet porridge. A dozen or so slices of meat were directly pressed into the bowl of porridge. The porridge was thick and scalding, and it was wrapped in the fragrance of meat. It went very well with the rice. He used the largest bowl in the family. His progress was also the fastest. It didn't even take 10 minutes for him to finish his third bowl. Don't drink hot food. It's hot and you'll get sick. Luo Shuqing only ate a shallow layer of porridge in her bowl. She didn't have any appetite. She just watched the others eat. In the end, she stared at Luo Nan and opened her mouth to admonish him. Luo Nan just grunted and continued to bury his head. He slurped the golden millet porridge into his mouth, eating boldly and confidently. His appetite had always been astonishing. After following Gym Master Shio to cultivate in the eye's orifice, his appetite had increased. Luo Nan wasn't indifferent to his grandfather's worsening condition. However, the experiences of the past few days, especially when he was swaying back and forth on the edge of life and death, caused a different feeling to linger in his heart. There were actually many attitudes one could have when facing the pain of one's loved ones. Sorrow was a common and helpless action in the secular world, but it might not be suitable for him. Luo Shuqing didn't get angry when she saw her nephew bury his head and eat. She just asked her husband, "Did Nan Nan gain some weight?" Mo Haiheng could guess that his wife had sensed that something was wrong with her mood. She was trying to adjust herself, so he grunted and said, "Old Mo, give me a number." "What's Luo Nan's weight?" Old Mo was the AI housekeeper. He grasped the body data and health index of the entire family. He immediately responded with a magnetic baritone voice. Mr. Luo Nan's weight was measured at 52.6 kilograms on October 28. His BMI is 18.8, that's fine. Mo Haiheng nodded at Luo Nan. You've put on a bit more weight recently. Your complexion looks better, though it's still on the light side. Luo Shuqing felt a bit gratified. Her lips curved into a smile. It looks like practicing martial arts was the right choice to stay in the hospital for a long time. I'll let the chubby kid go later. Mo Peng had been shot while eating. He immediately opened his eyes wide with an innocent expression. Luo Nan swallowed the piece of meat in his mouth and helped him out of this predicament. Gym Master Shio is about to move. The dojo will be temporarily closed for business. Luo Shuqing furrowed her brows. Then what are you going to do? I don't go much. I just need to give some pointers occasionally. They only accepted me because of Leicester. This can't happen again. 2 days ago, Xie Junping wanted to join in on the fun, but he was rejected. Luo Nan didn't speak a single word of falsehood. At most, it was a bit exaggerated. Luo Shuqing stared at Mo Peng with a face full of disdain. You found a dozen excuses when I asked you to spar with me. Now you don't have a chance. Look at that belly of yours. The Mo family and the Luo family don't have anyone with a body like yours. Mo Peng was suddenly questioned about the purity of his bloodline. He was drunk. He couldn't help retorting, I'm still in my puberty period, okay? How am I supposed to grow taller if I'm skinny? Let's not talk about anything else. If I'm shorter than Moya in the future, am I supposed to blame you guys for being biased? Moya? Luo Shuqing suddenly laughed. You're talking about that unfilial girl who ran away from home? You don't need to worry. I'll break her legs when she gets back. Chapter 326. Madame Luo Shuqing unleashed her feudal aura when talking about Moya. She was decisive and decisive. As the head of the family, Mo Haihang coughed, "Don't go overboard." Luo Shuqing tilted her head and stared at her husband. "Overboard?" Her little brother has been hospitalized several times, and her grandfather's condition has worsened. She's been away from home for nearly a month, and she hasn't called once a week. Her entire mind is on that band. Who's the one overboard? Luo Nan and Mo Peng glanced at each other. They buried their heads in their food. Of course, they couldn't tell their aunt, or mother, that Mo Ye had rushed back to see Luo Nan the second time he was admitted to the hospital. She just hid it from a certain someone. Yes, Mo Haihang knew about it. He even covered for her. But right now, he still had a calm expression. It was quite admirable. Mo Peng saw that his father was acting beautifully, and his brain heated up. He blurted, "She'll be back in a week. You can teach her a lesson when the time comes." Who's wrong? Is there anyone who curses their sister like that? Luo Shuqing shot him a cold glance. She seemed to be shifting her anger. Mo Peng stepped on a landmine. He buried his head back down with a face of grief and indignation. Luo Nan had been burying his head in his food the entire time, but he was distracted by the topic of Mo Ya. Luo Shuqing was worried. He was worried as well. But they were worried in different directions. They were in troubled times. Even with the support of the Xia City branch, it was hard to take care of the entire family. Not to mention that Mo Ya was hundreds of kilometers away in a border town. In terms of worry, he was even more worried than his aunt. "Nan Nan, what are your plans for today?" Luo Shuqing wanted to ease the atmosphere. She no longer clung to her son and turned to ask Luo Nan, bringing him back to reality. Luo Nan answered honestly, "I need to go to the maintenance center in the West City. I accidentally broke one of Gym Master Xiu's things a few days ago at the Daoguan. I need to go get it fixed." Luo Shuqing was a bit surprised. "West City? That's quite far. Should I take you there?" "No need. I've already booked a car. It'll be there after dinner." Luo Nan quickly finished eating. He tidied up a bit and ran out. The car he booked was Crag Burst's military off-road vehicle. It was parked outside the residential area and had been waiting for a long time. Crag Burst's original off-road vehicle had already been destroyed on the recycling stratum. This was a newly purchased one, and it looked even more domineering. Luo Nan sat in the front passenger seat and adjusted his posture. The car was a military-style car, so the seat was a bit hard. But it was truly spacious. With his height, he could practically stretch his legs in the seat. TSK, how much is this car?" "About 2 million. Crag Burst started up the car and ran over the road like a tank. Not long after, he cut into the high-speed magnetic track and continued to accelerate. Luo Nan used to be the least concerned about this sort of thing, but right now he was very envious. "Tycoon. Are all ability users easy to earn money? Why can't I find a way?" Crag Burst laughed. "You're still thinking about 60 million? Didn't the secretary say she would help you find one?" I can't always trouble her." Luo Nan's two palms fiercely pressed against his temples. He propped up his elbows, half stretching, half venting. He had hardly ever worried about money before. After all, he was the only son of the Luo family. His parents had invested in his education and living funds when he was born. He had a fixed amount of credits to spend every month. Add the doting of his aunt and uncle, and Mo Ya's financial support, and he was barely able to support himself even when he was conducting pharmaceutical research. But if he wanted to purchase the mutant devil ray in the crystal pillar of Ocean Sky Cloud City, the large sum of 60 million far exceeded his level of living. If he was still that stuffy research student and followed the prescribed routine, it wouldn't be easy for him to earn this much money in his lifetime. And now, he heard that the Yao family couldn't stand the destruction the devil ray was causing to the ecosystem within the crystal pillar. They were constantly contacting the next family. Perhaps the price would drop if he dragged it out for a bit longer, but it wouldn't mean much to Luo Nan. The most important thing was that he didn't have enough time. Oh my. I get annoyed just thinking about money. Luo Nan sighed. He only had this sort of opportunity to vent his frustrations in front of someone he was familiar with like Crag Burst. Crag Burst curled his lips. Your appetite is too big. Money doesn't just fall from the sky. If you really can't do it, I'll sponsor you a few million later. I'll make up for the difference or something. We're in a society of credit. Who would have so much spare money? Luo Nan leaned against the back of his seat. He cupped his hands weakly. Thanks. But I'd rather you introduce me to a way to make money. I have no clue at all. Where did you find it before? Ren Bufa of the society. I've looked for both official and private matters. It's all points and resources. I've never seen cash. There are points to exchange, but the market price of one honor point is 1 million. It's like trying to put out a cart of firewood with a cup of water. Zhang Yingying, Papercut, and the others all urged me not to trade. Of course you can't trade. Crag Burst slapped the steering wheel. The society's pricing hasn't changed in 30 years. You know, it's purely used to scam people. If you want to trade, you should go to the black market. Pooh. Don't go to the black market either. There are countless scammers there. Many of them are set up by the bastards of headquarters to specifically sweep points. Luo Nan grunted. They said the same thing. Honor points are very important. Right now the society's circle has formed a very closed-off rare and precious resource trading platform. It's either barter or use honor points as money. Nothing else matters. Crag Burst was still worried that Luo Nan didn't know the depth of things and that he would run headfirst into it and be countered by others. Crag Burst put in more effort to explain. In my opinion, this is the biggest reason why the society is able to last until today. Look at how the society has caused the heavens to be angry and the people to be resentful. Especially headquarters. But the majority of people are still here. There are still large groups of people who are sharpening their brains to get in. Why? Isn't it because of this resource trading platform? It's whetting everyone's appetite. You can't see it right now, but when you go deeper into cultivation, you'll need maintenance, treatment, and advancement. Large amounts of points will be casually thrown out. One mistake and your progress will stagnate for several years. Luo Nan nodded, then shook his head. He laughed bitterly. Right now I just want to make money. Make a lot of money. Crag Burst grinned. So you're looking in the wrong direction. The society's trading platform has already formed a closed-off circle. The money of the secular society isn't worth a fart. If you really want to make money, and you want to rely on your extraordinary abilities to make money, then you need to find those circles that are neither close nor distant from us. Neither close nor distant. In other words, those who know of the existence of the inner world but don't possess the relevant abilities themselves. They hope to hire ability users to do a few special things. Individuals, financial groups, military and political powers, and so on. Crag Burst turned his head to look at Luo Nan's face a few times when he spoke up to this point. He had a rare hesitation. This circle is half black and half white. Perhaps it's too early for you to make contact with it. What's too early? It's too late to make money right now. Oh, hold on. Using ability users. You mean, to do some illegal things? Luo Nan came to a realization. Crag Burst shrugged. It's half and half. It depends on luck. Then. I'll go try my luck. Fine. In any case, with your current ability, it's just a matter of time before you make contact with these people. I'll take you on a trip later. This circle is mainly concentrated in a few private clubs. Most of the transactions are done face-to-face. Only after you get familiar with them can you take up work online and negotiate prices. Crag Burst gave Luo Nan some relevant information, but he only spoke in general terms. Luo Nan could only understand the specific content after he made contact with them. Today was certainly not the day. Luo Nan's main mission right now was to repair the central mechanical device of the Tai Chi ball. Luo Nan and Crag Burst used an hour's drive to arrive at an electronic equipment shopping center located in the western district of the city. It was called Crossover. This Crossover Electronic City was a good place to ask Papercut for advice. There were over 10,000 stores of various sizes inside, and it was integrated with a large 24-hour repair service center. It was also the largest professional DIY exchange community in Xia City. Luo Nan and Crag Burst arrived at around 9:30 in the morning. The electronic city was already crowded with people. Hundreds and thousands of unmanned devices crisscrossed in the dedicated tunnels above each floor. It was a bustling scene. Their destination was none other than the large 24-hour repair service center. Luo Nan followed the process and handed over the mechanical parts that needed to be repaired, the reservation number, and so on to the registration desk. Maintenance workers were assigned, and they followed the hovering ball to the corresponding workstation. They saw the pretty maintenance consultant and waited. The hardware facilities of the repair center were extremely excellent. Even the waiting area was arranged in an extremely comfortable and luxurious manner. There was also a surveillance video that led directly to the workstation. It could be displayed in the form of a 3D holographic projection, allowing the maintenance workers to have a panoramic view of their work progress. It was as if the maintenance workers were right next to them. However, it gave people the feeling that a considerable service fee was likely to be pasted on top of the maintenance fees. There were many eyes here, so Crag Burst didn't discuss sensitive topics with Luo Nan. He looked at the workstation situation in extreme boredom. He wasn't interested in the maintenance worker who wore a work mask. He swept his eyes over the electronic price list and clicked his tongue over and over. This place is recommended by Papercut. He can't be a broker here, right? For a price that could make a nouveau riche like Crag Burst click his tongue, it was more or less the same for Luo Nan. However, he still believed in Papercut's sincerity. He just laughed and didn't respond. On the other side, the maintenance consultant poured tea for them. She spoke in a soft and gentle voice, "Sirs, please be at ease. This is one of the 20A class workstations in the repair center. The maintenance workers, related personnel, and equipment are all top-notch in Xia City. We will certainly be able to provide the most efficient service to our customers." A beep sounded from the workstation before she even finished speaking. A message was transmitted back. The maintenance consultant received the message and was slightly stunned. She then smiled at Luo Nan, revealing her standard 8 teeth. "Hello, customer. Since the situation of the product you sent for repair is a bit special, the maintenance worker will personally explain the situation." She turned to the side and made some fine adjustments, allowing the holographic projection to be clearer. However, the maintenance worker displayed on the projection wasn't as pleasing to the eye as she was. The maintenance worker had already stopped his inspection work. He lifted his mask, revealing his thin cheeks. His appearance was unremarkable. But since he was able to work as a technician on an A-class workstation, he was undoubtedly an outstanding professional. He sat behind the workstation and nodded toward Luo Nan and Crag Burst. He looked quite amiable. Chapter 327. "Hello, worker Zhai." Luo Nan greeted politely, but he soon blinked his eyes. He felt that this maintenance technician was a bit familiar. Furthermore, he noticed that worker Zhai seemed to be sizing him up as well. Worker Zhai's gaze wasn't directed at his face. Instead, it lingered on the notebook between his elbows. Their eyes met again. Worker Zhai smiled and continued, "There are no relevant records of the product sent by the customer for repair. Preliminary confirmation is that it's a DIY product. Speaking of which, this student seems to like this kind of thing." Luo Nan was startled. He looked at where worker Zhai's gaze landed, and memories from the depths of his brain were flipped to the surface. He suddenly realized why worker Zhai's face felt so familiar. He had indeed seen it before. Last month, he had a conflict with Li Shuecheng and his gang, and his flexible e-ink screen was trampled. Taking advantage of the Precision Electronics Interest Club's club activity, he wanted to repair it. It was this worker Zhai who had disassembled the flexible e-ink screen, allowing Luo Nan to discover the external neuron. He remembered that he had behaved rather rudely in a moment of desperation. Fortunately, this worker Zhai had a good temper and did not hold it against him. Luo Nan revealed a smile as well. Ah, worker Zhai works here. Many thanks for the other day. What are you thanking me for? All I did was dismantle and reassemble it once, nothing else. By the way, is that board fixed? Luo Nan didn't know how to answer the question. While he was stunned, worker Zhai changed the topic. What you brought today is also a DIY product. There's no ready-made manual to refer to, so it'll be more troublesome to repair. Currently, the number of visitors in the center hasn't reached the maximum, so I suggest you apply for a special service. It'll be much faster. DIY. In other words, it wasn't mass-produced. Luo Nan was a bit surprised, but he felt that this was reasonable. Apart from the dojos, he had never seen such a Tai Chi ball. He felt that its range of application was relatively narrow. Before he could respond, Crag Burst asked the maintenance consultant at his side, "This counts as an impromptu upgrade, right? What's the price?" The pretty maintenance consultant explained softly, "The two gentlemen have been booked by someone else on their behalf. All expenses for today will be borne by that customer. As for the exclusive service, it was mainly to move from the current open workbench to an independent studio to satisfy the need for privacy. It's still within the scope of the client's authority, so there's no need for additional expenses." Is that so? Papercut is being so generous. Let's not be unreasonable. Let's just turn. Crag Burst simply overstepped his boundaries and helped Luo Nan make the decision. Luo Nan had no objections. Then, let's enter the proprietary service mode. Workshop number 245, please follow the maintenance consultant and wait. Worker Zhai, who was on the other side, performed a series of operations and waited for the reserve maintenance technician to arrive and take over his duties. Luo Nan and Crag Burst followed the pretty maintenance consultant. They passed through the open hall and arrived at a completely sealed workshop. The layout here wasn't too different from the outside. The only difference was that there were a few more facilities, but it was even more cramped. A big guy like Crag Burst felt a bit suffocated. Just as he was mumbling to himself, a transmission channel suddenly opened on the operating platform. The mechanical device that Luo Nan had sent for repair was fixed onto a special support. It was transported over and placed in front of the center of the operating platform. This mechanical device was the core of the Tai Chi Dojo's Tai Chi ball. It was spherical in shape and about the size of a fist. The outer layer was a very thin metal mesh, and the inside was a device similar to a gyroscope. At this time, on the special support, the outer metal net was constantly expanding and shrinking, but that was all. Crag Burst clicked his tongue twice. Isn't it troublesome to send it back and forth? As he spoke, he pulled Luo Nan forward to observe the device. The maintenance consultant had told them before that an independent workshop was different from the outside. Customers could directly enter the operating platform and observe from a close distance. They could even operate the device with the permission of the maintenance technician. Some DIY enthusiasts wanted this sort of atmosphere. They flocked like ducks to this place. Luo Nan was mechanically illiterate. He had no concept of operating anything, but Crag Burst had served in the Coastal Defense Force for many years. He could be considered half an expert. However, he never paid attention to what Luo Nan had sent for repair. Now that he saw it up close, he said, "This toy looks quite familiar. It looks like a hovering target. The prototype should be the Paya Corporation's Comet Model 3 hovering target. It's a very old model. It was introduced to the market 10 years ago." Worker Zhai entered from another employee passageway and continued Crag Burst's conversation. Crag burst snapped his fingers. Yes, it's the Comet Model 3. The gyroscope in the middle is actually an AI hub. It's special and it's very durable. When I was in the military, I could use it for a long time with a random target shell. It's easy to repair. The Comet Model 3 isn't hard to repair, but this product is a bit different. Worker Zhai walked to the side of the two. He wasn't tall, he was about the same height as Luo Nan. He had a friendly smile. But when he stood in front of the operating platform and activated the relevant privileges, all sorts of maintenance and testing equipment started up one after another. They made fine adjustments according to his position. The entire workshop seemed to revolve around him. TSK. This room of equipment can't be bought for $1 million. Crag Burst turned his head to look all around with a very curious appearance. Worker Zhai answered, the standard workshop's configuration price is $7.5 million. After 8 years of depreciation. I've added a few personal equipment here. It's convenient to use. Look. There are at least 2 areas of this hovering target that have undergone major repairs. Crag Burst moved closer and discussed with Worker Zhai, I just saw one area. The outer shell of the target has been removed and replaced with a metal net. I don't know what it's used for. It's a fixed support, right? Luo Nan relied on his memory to compare the diameter of the Tai Chi ball to the size of the hovering target. He felt that there were some differences. He then looked at the metal net that was constantly expanding and contracting, and he made a few guesses. Fixed. Worker Zhai thought for a moment, but he didn't ask further. Instead, he gestured for the two to look over. The net is just an accessory. The core problem doesn't lie here. As he spoke, he performed a few operations on the support. It was unknown how he did it, but he actually removed the metal net and placed it to the side. All that was left was a gyroscope-like object in the center. The gyroscope's rotor didn't move at this time, and the inner and outer frames were placed there in a well-behaved manner. Worker Zhai then controlled the mechanical arm, including the probe, and other objects, to disassemble the gyroscope. The difficulty of disassembling the gyroscope this time seemed to be quite a bit lower than the flexible e-ink screen from back then. Within a short minute, the three heard a slight clicking sound. It seemed that some sort of mechanism had been activated. The gyroscope's central axis was disassembled from the top to the bottom, revealing an object that looked like broken glass. Next, Worker Zhai operated the mechanical arm and used special tweezers to pluck the object out. He placed it on a miniature support and slightly secured it. It could be seen at this time that the object's outer appearance was actually quite regular. It was rhombohedral, and it had clearly undergone precision processing. A central control chip? Crag Burst asked in a low voice. His breathing slowed down a bit, afraid that he would blow this thing away. Luo Nan didn't speak. He just narrowed his eyes. Chapter 328. Luo Nan observed the rhombohedron object as well as Worker Zhai. The latter was carefully sizing up the former with great concentration. It's definitely not part of the Comet 3's design. The hovering target's control program is very simple. The main control chip has already been integrated into the shaft. And this little thing seems to be unnecessary. Crag Burst asked curiously, unnecessary. Let's do an experiment. Studio 245, 1 Batwing Model A outer shell, thank you. The last few sentences were directed at the warehouse in the maintenance center. As he spoke, Worker Zhai let go of the rhombohedron object. He inspected the gyroscope's rotor and its internal and external frames, especially the disassembled central shaft. He repeated this process twice before beginning to assemble it. It was obvious that Worker Zhai had deliberately ignored the tiny rhombohedron during the assembly process. He had only restored the gyroscope-shaped floating target. His speed was very fast, and he finished assembling the shell before the conveyor belt arrived. When the outer shell arrived, Worker Zhai quickly stuffed the gyroscope inside. In the end, what appeared before Luo Nan and Crag Burst's eyes was a very strange bowl-shaped object. It looked like a flying saucer that wasn't very regular. Crag Burst was very familiar with this toy, the Batwing Model A target aircraft. It combines high-speed flight and emergency hovering maneuverability very well. The Model B and Model C can actually be used as simple weapons platforms. They can be used in the wilderness. Worker Jai smiled at Crag Burst. This could be considered an affirmation of his expertise. Then, he let go, and the big target machine floated in the air with a low hum. It slowly moved horizontally, gliding past the tips of the three people's noses, and gradually accelerated. As the speed of the target plane increased, it was like a bat, flying back and forth in the narrow workshop, but there was no collision. Worker Jai looked at the light screen to the side. Various test data was displayed on it like a waterfall. 10 seconds later, he shook his head. I didn't discover any problems. As he spoke, Worker Jai cast his gaze toward the miniature support. His gaze paused for a moment under the rhombohedron object. He switched to the holographic interface and displayed the repair order that Luo Nan had filled out before. I need to make a confirmation. The fault you discovered, Mr. Luo. It's a Tai Chi ball that can float in the air. Luo Nan was very cooperative as he gave a general description of the situation. Worker Jai thought for a moment, then asked, how heavy is the Tai Chi ball? It's half the height of a person and it's made of hard metal. It should weigh at least a few hundred kilograms. Luo Nan really wasn't too sure. Worker Jai made a sound of surprise. Crag Burst coughed. Nanster, the motor of the floating target can only lift 5 kilograms at most. Worker Jai shook his head. I don't see any changes to the floating target's propulsion and transmission mechanism. Oh, if the metal mesh is used as a support, then it can be considered a part of the transmission mechanism. However, its propulsion doesn't make sense. Is that so? Luo Nan only had a superficial understanding of the Tai Chi ball. It was very hard for him to answer such a question. After a moment of consideration, he could only pull up his contact list and call Xue Lei. At this time, Xue Lei was at home. It seemed like he was still doing a lot of training. He was panting slightly. He really didn't want to waste any time. Of course, he was familiar with the Tai Chi ball, but the problem was that he was not good with words. If he really had to describe it, he would not be able to express himself. The Tai Chi ball is able to continuously accumulate and transform the energy that is struck into various forms of rebounding force. It can also directly change the nature of the energy. Crag Burst bumped Luo Nan with his shoulder. He's worthy of being your best friend. It's the same. Luo Nan ignored him. He still wanted to communicate with Xue Lei, but Xue Lei had already found a more efficient method. How about this? I recorded a video last year about training with the Tai Chi ball. I'll send it to you now. You'll understand once you see it. It's true. The video file was right next to his hand, and Xue Lei immediately began to transfer it. The network environment of the repair center was quite outstanding. Luo Nan saw that there was a lot of bandwidth, so he simply opened up a video call, allowing Xue Lei to directly participate. Xue Lei and Crag Burst had met before. Luo Nan just introduced Worker Jai to Xue Lei, and the video file was finished transferring. Worker Jai indicated for Luo Nan to transfer the file to the wide hologram, and they watched it together. The video was recorded from a very monotonous angle. It was clear that Crag Burst was recording himself. The location was in Gym Master Xiu's backyard. Xue Lei was bare-chested, revealing a body of strong muscles. He adjusted his breathing and punched. Xue Lei punched the Tai Chi ball, producing a deep sound. It was clear that Xue Lei's strength was considerable. However, the Tai Chi ball only trembled slightly. This penetrative force is truly beautiful. Crag Burst clicked his tongue in admiration. He was not stingy with his praise. He turned his head to face Luo Nan and said, "Leister is truly amazing." He sent the maximum power of his fist into the center of the Tai Chi ball. The hovering target took the brunt of the force. That's why there's such an effect. Shui Lei's strikes continued without end. His speed didn't change, and the Tai Chi ball maintained its stability from beginning to end. A minute passed, and his fists suddenly increased in strength. His bare arm actually made an explosive sound out of thin air. Not only was the force of this strike fiercer, but there was also a change in the force behind it. The Tai Chi ball didn't fall back after receiving a heavy blow. Instead, it actually jumped up. It jumped over the edge of the metal bowl, reaching a height of 20 centimeters. Shui Lei connected with another punch just as it was about to sink. The hovering target jumped up once more, swaying a bit. This time, it didn't come down. The Tai Chi ball, weighing several hundred kilograms, floated in the air. It was 30 centimeters above the ground, and it began to spin. Shui Lei's expression was focused. The speed of his punches didn't change, but one punch after another brought with it an explosive sound. The hovering target was still swaying at first. Occasionally, it would shift. But later on, the swaying became smaller and smaller, and the spinning speed grew faster and faster. The luminous patterns on its surface were visible even in broad daylight. The video ended here. Crag burst applauded and cheered. Shui Lei was a bit embarrassed. Luo Nan looked at Worker Zhai. Worker Zhai was looking at the still image of the video. Worker Zhai was a bit spellbound. He sighed in admiration, but there wasn't much surprise in his expression. Crag burst saw Worker Zhai's expression and grinned. What do you think? Do you see the trick yet? Can it be fixed? Worker Zhai lowered his head and pondered for a moment. His expression was still calm. I get the gist of it. It should be a way to store and transform external kinetic energy. The storage is like a spring. The greater the force, the greater the expected rebound. The method of transformation is quite interesting. It goes from straight force to rotational force. There's also that buoyancy. Let me do an experiment. He moved the miniature support, sending the miniature rhombohedron into a certain instrument chamber. It was fixed on all four sides. A buzzing vibration immediately rang out. It could be seen that it was imitating Shui Lei's fist strength. It was transmitting external kinetic energy into the rhombohedron. Luo Nan adjusted the direction of the video to let Shui Lei see the process of the experiment. The three people observed very attentively, but there were no changes to the miniature rhombohedron even after a dozen or so seconds had passed. Worker Zhai wasn't in a hurry. He soon made another adjustment. This time, he directly connected the miniature rhombohedron with electricity. The voltage and current increased, but the rhombohedron within the instrument chamber still didn't have any reaction. It's completely broken. Shui Lei was a bit disappointed. Should we try again after it's completely restored? Crag burst wanted to change his method. Worker Zhai didn't speak any further. He just stared at the instrument chamber and continued to make adjustments. A metal rod flipped up under the operating table as he operated. The top was shaped like a handle, and it was even wrapped in a layer of insulating cloth. When the metal rod was at a 90-degree angle with the ground, Worker Zhai pressed down on the handle at the top and took a deep breath. Luo Nan raised his eyebrows at this moment. Crag burst turned his head a bit later. The two locked gazes, confirming that subtle fluctuations were being produced on the mental plane. Hey hey hey. It's changed. It's changed. Shui Lei discovered the changes within the instrument chamber in the first instant through the high-speed network without any delay. Luo Nan and Crag burst turned their gazes and saw several long and slender threads extending out from the outer layer of the miniature rhombohedron. They slowly swayed up and down, left and right. Chapter 329. A total of 6 fine threads extended out from the miniature rhombohedron. They swayed and floated within the chamber of the device. At first glance, it looked like a struggling alien jellyfish. Luo Nan pursed his lips, and his gaze focused on the interior of the device. He felt that the scene before him had a sense of déjà vu. It was as if he had seen it somewhere before. Crag burst swept a few glances before shifting his gaze to worker Zhai. From the outside, this maintenance technician's forehead was covered in sweat from just holding the metal rod. It looked like he was working very hard. At the same time, the fluctuations on the mental plane grew more and more obvious. There was nothing much to say. Worker Zhai was an ability user. Crag burst sized up this person a few more times. He felt that this was unexpected, but reasonable. It was natural that the channel introduced by Papercut was linked to ability users. As Luo Nan's bodyguard, Crag burst needed to eliminate all sources of danger. But frankly speaking, it was a bit difficult to link this person to a source of danger. Worker Zhai's performance was really quite average. Such a description could be said to be polite. Crag burst was experienced and knowledgeable. He had his own yardstick in mind. Worker Zhai's performance of disturbing the mental plane just now was probably a level higher than that of the ability users Crag burst had seen before. Being able to consciously use mental strength to affect the material plane was pretty good for ordinary people, but that was all there was to it. The metal rod and its related instruments were used for amplification. If it weren't for this intermediate link, with Worker Zhai's level of mental strength, it was unknown if the interference force he formed would be able to lift up even a strand of fine hair. Crag burst relaxed after making this judgment. He noticed that Luo Nan was still seriously observing the device's chamber. Looking at Luo Nan's focused appearance, the miniature rhombohedron seemed to be more valuable than expected. A thin layer of sweat had already formed on Worker Zhai's forehead. His breathing was no longer even, but the appearance of the 6 tentacles around the rhombohedron in the device's chamber didn't change at all. Luo Nan finally spoke at this time. Will this toy undergo further changes? Worker Zhai took a deep breath and spoke much faster. There should be. These 6 tentacles are quite sensitive to interference force, but they haven't formed an effective structure for kinetic energy storage and transformation, let alone those related to maglev. If the Tai Chi ball itself doesn't possess a corresponding arrangement, then these tentacles are the most worthy of attention. My abilities aren't enough. Can I help? Not to mention Luo Nan and Crag burst, even Xue Lei, who was watching from afar, sensed that something was off. He assumed that Luo Nan had forgotten to introduce him. He grinned and said, so Worker Zhai is also from the society. Worker Zhai also smiled. He didn't hide it. Papercut is my recommendation, but he's still in the evaluation period. It's already been over 5 years. Xue Lei exclaimed, it can't be, the evaluation is very strict. He had already prepared to join the Ability User Professional Association, and the relevant procedures had already begun. With a busybody like Zhang Yingying around, he didn't have to worry about anything. Therefore, he was still at the stage where he didn't fully understand the 3 stages of the association's assessment, awakening, and vocation. When he heard 5 years, his heart skipped a beat. Worker Zhai continued to smile faintly. Luo Nan and Crag burst didn't explain in person. After all, speaking the truth was a bit hurtful. In terms of sensing on the mental plane, even 10 Crag bursts added together couldn't compare to Luo Nan. If Crag burst was able to discover the situation, then Luo Nan certainly wouldn't have any problems as well. Moreover, Luo Nan's situation was more detailed and vivid. From Luo Nan's perspective, Worker Zhai's mental strength and his ability to interfere with the material plane were truly too horrible to look at. Some time ago, he had a similar problem. But even if the appearance was similar, the essence was completely different. Luo Nan possessed mental strength that far exceeded normal standards, but because of the special circumstances of formatting theory, a barrier was formed between him and the material plane. In the end, he relied on coupling with the heart lantern of the eye's orifice to break through the shackles. It could be said that Worker Zhai's problem was a marvel, but his method of solving it was extraordinary. As for Worker Zhai, his problem was the simplest and most straightforward kind. His cultivation was insufficient. There was nothing praiseworthy about him on the mental plane, be it in terms of intensity or level of immersion. He simply wasn't up to standard by the standards of the society. Luo Nan remembered Zhang Yingying saying that there were 600,000 ability users in the world, but only 70,000 awakened ones. It was these 70,000 people that formed the framework of the Ability User Professional Association. Unawakened characters like Worker Zhai belonged to the category of people that the society could record, but they were normally disinclined to pay attention to. If Worker Zhai was a bit younger, like Luo Nan who was 15 or 16 years old, then perhaps there would be some anticipation. The problem was that Worker Zhai was at least 40 years old. The word potential no longer held any meaning. Worker Zhai found it harder and harder to hold on with these few words. He shook his head. Who's going to give me a hand? How? Just hold this handle and pour your strength into it. As long as you can form interference power, then it's fine. Then I'll do it. Crag Burst wasn't willing to let Luo Nan touch some inexplicable things. He took a step forward and firmly grasped the metal handle after Worker Zhai released his grip. The tentacles that extended from the miniature rhombohedron had a tendency to shrink inward because Worker Zhai had released his grip. However, Crag Burst didn't seem to exert much force, but the contracted tentacles suddenly protruded out by a large chunk. They even became a bit thicker. The space of the device's chamber became much narrower, so much so that the tentacles had to continuously coil in order to accommodate them. Soon, the four people could clearly see that 5 forks had silently separated from each tentacle. They were finer than the tentacles of the previous level, and they were slowly elongating. There were a total of 36 filaments. They crisscrossed from time to form a marvelous dynamic pattern. This is amazing. Shui Lei's attention was immediately drawn back. He scratched his head as he watched. There are other mechanisms in this toy. Crag Burst was blinking as well. It was as if he was recalling something. He asked Worker Zhai, "Is this okay?" "Wait a moment." Worker Zhai used the scanning device to analyze the dynamic pattern formed by the tentacles. He formed a simple diagram and transferred it to the holographic screen. Then, he began to operate and make corrections. In a short 10 seconds, there was a dynamic pattern. It appeared one after another, appearing in succession. It was like an animated short film. There was a clear sequence to it. The structure of the kinetic energy conversion is okay, but it's still not enough. Again. Watch me. Crag Burst didn't pass on this responsibility. He added 2 more layers of force as he chatted and laughed. However, there was no further reaction from the device's chamber. Worker Zhai indicated for Crag Burst to look at the dashboard below the metal rod. Continue. It's fine as long as the needle doesn't enter the red zone. Then I'm going to play for real. Crag Burst grinned. A layer of dark red radiance seemed to suffuse his bronze-skinned face. Even his pupils revealed a scarlet color. His 5 fingers moved a bit on the metal handle. He was just about to exert force when he heard, "Stop." Crag Burst instinctively withdrew his force. He glanced at the dashboard, but he saw that the needle had already made a large jump. It had nearly entered the red zone. "I haven't even used my strength yet. Your interference ability is too rough. It's not suitable." Worker Zhai turned his gaze to the other side as he spoke. Chapter 330. Luo Nan understood tacitly when he saw Worker Zhai cast a gaze at him. "Let me try." Hey. I'm using a penetrating strength." But Crag Burst didn't let go. He was a bit unconvinced, but he was still wary on a deeper level. "You tell me first. Let's not talk about Nanster. I don't seem to be much worse than Shui Lei. If he can activate the effects, why can't I?" Worker Zhai responded warmly, "I'm thinking about it. There are 2 reasons. First, my amplification device is more suited to mental ability users. You are a typical fleshly body enhanced. Your interference direction is different. Second, this miniature rhombohedron is perhaps more like our wristbands. Daily usage is 1 layer, developer options are another layer." Crag Burst rubbed his big bald head. He felt that what Worker Zhai said made some sense. He cast his gaze at Luo Nan, who nodded. Worker Zhai's operation just now was extremely precise and meticulous. His mental strength borrowed the minute electric current of the device to realize the amplification of interference on the material plane. But when it came to you, Brother Crag burst, the amplification device's effects were completely destroyed. So it's like this. Crag burst nodded. When he looked at Worker Zhai, his gaze was a bit different. Is it electron affinity? This ability is quite good. It's especially suited for maintenance. It's like adding wings to a tiger. Which place doesn't need electricity nowadays? Worker Zhai laughed involuntarily. It's not suited. It's necessary. I'm a mental ability user. If I can't realize electron affinity, then further research would be wishful thinking. As he spoke, he cast his gaze at Luo Nan. His thoughts were rather complicated. I don't even dare to think about Mr. Luo's eyesight. We amateurs who haven't entered the door are truly left in the dust when compared to the awakened. Well, Nanster is a special case. As Crag burst spoke, he made room for Luo Nan. He added, I feel like I've seen this toy somewhere before. Luo Nan didn't speak. He took a step forward and grasped the metal rod. When Crag burst let go, the tentacles of the miniature rhombohedron retracted. Luo Nan didn't release his power in time. He didn't make any further movements until the tentacles were completely retracted. What's wrong? Crag burst didn't understand. Probably just observing. Worker Zhai was a precision-oriented mentally enhanced. Even though he was unable to observe Luo Nan's movements on the mental plane, he was able to guess the corresponding train of thought. Crag burst said, oh. He felt a bit embarrassed for being so suspicious of Worker Zhai just now. He pressed down on his earlobe and made a gesture for members of the society, let's add each other as friends. Worker Zhai smiled bitterly and waved his hand. I'm sorry, I can't. You don't have an ID on the psychic wave network? There's one, but it's hard to use. Worker Zhai shook his head again. I do have some mental strength, but it's not enough to interfere with reality at any time. That's why I've only been able to wander around the periphery of the circle these past few years, relying on my craftsmanship to make a living. Fortunately, Papercut took care of me and often introduced me to some work. There was no doubt that Luo Nan had been introduced in this manner. Crag burst said in surprise, it can't be that bad. I can see that your interference force is on point. That's in this studio. Outside of here, I'm no different from an ordinary person. Worker Zhai glanced at Luo Nan. He saw that Luo Nan still hadn't made a move, so he turned his head back and said, Papercut has put in quite a bit of effort. He's tried to help me with the awakening ritual, but I'm limited by my talent. I've only gained a bit of an affinity with electrons over the past 5 years. I'm still far from being able to do anything else. I need to rely on a hearing aid in order to use the hexaear and access the psychic wave network. Right now, I've only reached the 2nd level. I can only watch television, listen to the radio, and so on. I have no way of interacting with others. A hearing aid? Did you design it yourself? Crag burst was able to understand that this was a type of amplification device. He was a bit curious. The people of the society, as long as they're involved in mechanical and electronic design, amplification devices have always been a hot topic. The larger the measurement, the better. You're talking about the 4-dimensional measurement. Worker Zhai was a technician. He always paid attention to similar theories. Right when he was about to discuss a thing or two with Crag burst, Luo Nan suddenly let out a long breath. His palm left the metal rod. The miniature rhombohedron was still in its initial state within the device's chamber. Compared to Worker Zhai and Crag burst's progress, it was a complete and utter regression. Xue Lei, who was watching from afar, didn't participate in the conversation between Crag burst and Worker Zhai. He focused on observing Luo Nan's methods from beginning to end. But the more he watched, the more disappointed he became. Nanster, is it no good? I want to take it out and give it a try. Luo Nan turned his head to look at Worker Zhai. This device won't be of much help to me. The direction of its amplification is mainly in strength. I feel that it would be better to go a bit deeper. Depth, strength, sensitivity, and affinity. These were the four-dimensional measurement that Worker Zhai had just mentioned. They were the four basic measurement standards that the society used for mental strength. There wasn't any particularly rigorous logic or scientific basis in these measurements. They were mainly established by common usage, reflecting the fuzziness of the research of supernatural powers in the current era. Worker Zhai didn't have any objections. My specialty is in electronic equipment and mechanical design. I'm considering the internal structure of this thing. As for the mental domain, you have the final say. He opened the device chamber as he spoke, and the miniature rhombohedron was mounted on the support. It moved out and stopped at the outer edge of the workbench. Luo Nan gave it a few more glances and asked, Worker Zhai, you just said that just the kinetic energy conversion structure isn't enough. You mean? From the situation shown in the video, there are at least two structures that aren't shown, maglev and energy storage. Also, I want to know where the power components are located. Worker Zhai casually drew several structural sketches on the hologram, corresponding to the kinetic energy conversion structure. From a conventional train of thought, the miniature rhombohedron is more like an integrated circuit. It's not a problem to use it in electronic equipment, but what kind of work is needed to drive the several 100-kilogram Tai Chi ball? Those tentacles are a good choice. It's fine as long as the transmission and work parts are combined together. But I haven't discovered the corresponding structural design. Luo Nan had a general understanding. What Worker Zhai means is that there should be more tentacles to form more structures. Worker Zhai used an electronic pen to tap the hologram. Dynamic, precise, and sufficiently firm. Crag burst listened to them speak, and a certain train of thought from before resurfaced. It became clearer and clearer, separated only by a thin layer of paper. He rubbed his forehead forcefully. Tentacles. Structure. Precision. Ha! What's that again? Luo Nan laughed and asked, in other words, the miniature rhombohedron driving the Tai Chi ball is very likely to be accomplished through those tentacles. Worker Zhai nodded, and Crag burst clapped his hands forcefully. Holy crap! The dynamo core. Luo Nan didn't say anything more. He took a deep breath, and his towering iceberg-like mental strength resonated with the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Incorporeal lightning crackled and scuttled, forming a seemingly substantial bolt of lightning in the depths of the cracks in his eyes. The miniature rhombohedron inexplicably trembled at the focus of his gaze. This object couldn't compare to the external neuron. It couldn't compare to Jack's Deep Sea Type 4, but the sparkle on the mental plane and the corresponding spark of lightning in Luo Nan's eyes truly belonged to the dynamo core. Chapter 332. 6 tentacles extended out from the miniature rhombohedron within the workshop, followed by a second layer. This time, the tentacles were even more slender. There were 6 main trunks and 30 secondary branches. The scale was already far above the core rhombohedron. Several dozen tentacles undulated and fluttered. If one did not have a predetermined view, it was likely that they would have overlooked the existence of the rhombohedron. The current situation was no different from the situation in the device chamber. At most, the tentacles extended a bit more. It was just that the 3 people in the workshop were much more serious than before. Luo Nan squinted his eyes, adjusting the glow of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Crag burst shifted his feet lightly to adjust the angle of the heart lantern. As for Worker Zhai, he brought a portable microscope with him. He switched lenses from time to time, searching for a suitable focal length. Are there any changes? Xue Lei was limited by his long-range view. He was unable to distinguish the details clearly. He blinked a dozen times, but he was unable to see anything. In the end, Worker Zhai gave a response. He said, "Wait a moment." He took a piece of tin foil from the workbench and rolled it into a strip. He carefully extended it over, using the tip to streak across the empty region of the tentacle structure. The tip of the tin foil was soon obstructed, and it bent a bit. Under the illumination of the workshop's lights, a thin stream of light streaked across the empty region. It was unremarkable, but it was still captured by the others. There's something. Shui Lei immediately understood. It was very likely that there was an even finer structure in the empty region of the tentacle structure. However, its composition had already surpassed the limits of what the naked eye could see. Worker Zhai slowly pulled back the tin foil, but the tip of the tin foil inexplicably tore as soon as he pulled back his elbow. It was as if an invisible blade had sliced through it. The front half of the tin foil first broke off, and then it shattered. During this period, it could be seen that the 36 tentacles didn't have any obvious changes. Instead, a subtle trembling sound rang out in the workshop. The source was from the tentacle structure. Careful. Careful. Crag pressed down with his hands, indicating for Worker Zhai to take it gently. Worker Zhai thought for a moment and simply flicked the second half of the tin foil toward the top of the tentacle structure, letting it fall freely. As expected, the tin foil tumbled a few times in midair. Before it could make contact with any of the visible tentacles, it was crushed into powder by the invisible strangulation. The sound of breathing had disappeared from the workshop, and the trembling sound of the tentacle structure grew clearer. Worker Zhai turned to look at Luo Nan. Luo Nan's gaze still lingered on the rhombohedron. Worker Zhai spoke softly, "Did you see it?" Crag curled his lips, "You're just showing off your superior spirit, dog die." Beside him, Worker Zhai smiled bitterly. From this point of view, he, an unawakened spiritually enhanced individual, was worse than a dog. Fortunately, after choosing the engineering specialization route, he could rely on the assistance of equipment, and he could do more. A series of cracking sounds rang out from beneath the workbench. A circle of white boards rose up in a slanted manner, looking like a coarse calyx. The tentacle structure was half enclosed within, forcing Luo Nan and Crag to retreat. Several spotlights lit up above, adjusting their angles so that the light could penetrate the visible and invisible tentacle structure and cast a shadow on the whiteboard. F*CK me. Crag was caught off guard. On the snow-white board, there seemed to be thousands of snakes wriggling, constantly changing according to the angle of the light. They could see clearly now. Through the special light projection, the 36 strands, which were thinner than strands of hair, became thumb-thick on the board. And between them, a densely packed, shadow spider web was woven. Thus, everyone confirmed that there was a layer of even finer strands that couldn't be seen with the naked eye between the two layers of 36 strands. The strands were densely woven like a web, forming an even more complex and precise structure. Worker Zhai operated the computer and cut the shadow spider web from multiple angles together. It didn't take long for a relatively complete 3D structure to be formed. It appeared on the workbench in the form of a projection. Luo Nan's gaze went back and forth between the real thing and the 3D projection. Crag couldn't see through it, so he simply asked, "How many strands are there in total?" The current count is 1,276 strands. Worker Zhai swept his eyes over the data and then sighed, "The structure just now needs to be completely replaced. There's also the material analysis. The resources allocated to me may not be enough. They may not be suitable either." Crag didn't understand. "What?" "There's a supercomputer here in the Electronic City. Its name is Crossover. With my privileges, I can request a portion of the resources. Actually, I'm using it right now. Its main purpose is to analyze the dynamic structure." Worker Zhai pointed at the holographic screen. Page after page of diagrams flashed by at high speed. They were all structural diagrams extracted from the shadow spider web that had just been confirmed. Over 1,000 diagrams had flashed by in the time Worker Zhai spoke. "It looks pretty fast, huh? You can't provide effective parameters, so you can only rely on the method of exhaustion. It's meaningless." This is because it's impossible for the computer to understand how a glass-like object can split into over 1,000 tentacles of varying thicknesses, far surpassing the size of its storage capacity. These tentacles are in a state when they're coiled up, and how they function when they're released. Worker Zhai sighed when he spoke to this point, especially when the stimulating factor involves the mental plane. If this is the case, the mainstream engineering of humanity isn't ready yet. I'm powerless to do anything for the time being. Shui Lei let out a sigh, a little disappointed. Cragburst shook his big bald head and sighed along with Worker Zhai. However, his mentality was more stable than everyone else's. He turned to look at Luo Nan. It's a big discovery. What do you think? Should we transfer it to the society to take a look? Luo Nan didn't respond immediately. He just asked Worker Zhai, can I put it away now? Worker Zhai was actually a bit reluctant, but he couldn't find a reason to refuse. He just nodded with a bitter smile. Luo Nan closed his eyes slightly, isolating the effects of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. The 3 layers of over 1,000 tentacles, whether they were tangible or intangible, all retracted back. The volume of the miniature rhombohedron didn't show any obvious changes. Worker Zhai couldn't be bothered to tidy up his workbench. He operated the portable microscope with one hand and moved closer to the miniature rhombohedron. He clicked his tongue in wonder. Luo Nan moved to the side, and Cragburst understood. The two walked to the side and conversed in low voices. What's the difference between Jack's Deep Sea Type 4 and this one? Is it also a 3-layer structure that extends little by little? 3 layers? I don't understand this. I only skimmed through the report. Cragburst did his best to recall, but he was unable to grasp the gist of it. In the end, he simply said, just contact the branch's laboratory. You're one of the parties involved, and your operation score is near the top. You certainly have the right to access and consult. It's fine as long as you don't leak it. Hee, that's how it is. Not many people cared in the past. Yeah. Not many people cared. Luo Nan curled his lips. Cragburst was a bit embarrassed. Leaking on all sides was a tradition of the society, and Luo Nan was the newest victim of this tradition. As such, he couldn't help but be a bit hesitant. Let the branch's laboratory handle this. You'll certainly need to explain the ins and outs of this matter. Is that okay? Leister, what's your opinion? Luo Nan looked at Shui Lei. Shui Lei was a bit hesitant. Shui Lei didn't understand the significance of the dynamo core, but he could see that this toy was far from simple. He didn't expect that repairing the device would cause complications, and that the implications weren't small. Don't think too much about it. The prophet is the gym master. Listen to his opinion. Luo Nan saw that Shui Lei was in a difficult position, so he simply declared, this is the gym master's personal property. We stole it from the Daoguan. Even if we did it out of good intentions, we would leak our privacy. How would we explain this to the gym master later? Shui Lei let out a breath of relief and nodded over and over. Luo Nan looked at Cragburst and Worker Zhai. Cragburst made a zipping motion with his mouth, while Worker Zhai had just recovered from his research state. He laughed and said, protecting the privacy of our customers is a basic principle of technicians. Then that's good. Luo Nan nodded to express his thanks. Shui Lei asked again, should I tell the gym master now? Luo Nan hesitated for a moment. His gaze cast toward the miniature rhombohedron, and then he turned to look at the 3-dimensional projection and the simplified diagram that appeared on the holographic screen. A long time passed before he opened his mouth, but he gave an irrelevant answer. This diagram. I don't understand it. Huh? The other 3 were a bit stupefied. Luo Nan took a step forward and swiped his hand across the holographic screen, looking at the simplified diagram that had already been swept past. Under the deduction of the allocated supercomputer resources, the structural diagram of the dynamo core appeared endlessly and was revised. From a layman's point of view, it was concise, but the corresponding professional symbols were like heavenly books. It was hard to understand. He originally wanted to use his habitual thinking methods of coupling, configuration, and so on to deconstruct it. But a few thoughts ran through his mind, and he gave up for now. He turned his head and asked, "Worker Zhai, these diagrams are too professional. Can you teach me a bit?" "Which parts?" "All of them." Worker Zhai was a bit startled, but he soon laughed. "It's a long story." The frequency at which Luo Nan's fingers swiped was far from being able to keep up with the speed of the supercomputer's analysis. It didn't take long for Luo Nan to give up, allowing the simple diagrams to sweep past. But the thoughts that popped up before became clearer and more stable. "I want to learn from the beginning. I've always been mediocre in physics. I don't even need to talk about electronic engineering and mechanical design. It would naturally be best if I could make up for it." Worker Zhai looked a few more times, and he suddenly realized that the society member before him, who had already reached a higher level, was still a student. He skimmed over the relevant information. His age of 16 was very eye-catching. "What year are you in high school this year?" "First year." "You're interested in engineering?" "It's useful." Luo Nan was very frank. He started from a completely practical point of view. "I want to understand these structural diagrams. I need to have a concept at the very least." Worker Zhai shook his head and emphasized once more, "I can't do it in a short amount of time." On the other side, Crag Burst had already been tripped by Luo Nan's train of thought. He simply rolled his eyes. "Weren't we discussing confidentiality issues? You even said that you wanted to confess to that gym master Xiao and be lenient. After it's fixed." Luo Nan cut off Crag Burst's words and looked at Xue Lei. "The gym master has a strange temper. I can't predict what kind of reaction he will have. If I ask him in a muddle-headed manner, we might not be able to talk. Leister, let's keep this a secret for now. Wait for me to figure out the reasoning behind this, then we'll return it to its owner, okay?" Okay. Xue Lei was actually stupefied, especially when he looked directly into Luo Nan's eyes. Even though Luo Nan's eyes were separated by a layer of contact lenses, and even though the photoelectric signal was transmitted and restored, Luo Nan's gaze was still blazing to the point of terror. He had never seen Luo Nan like this in his memories. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Crag Burst raised his hands in an attempt to calm Luo Nan down. "You said you're going to fix it. How are you going to fix it? And you're going to find the branch's laboratory? This is a contradiction. Let me tell you, even the branch's laboratory might not be able to grasp the relevant technology." Luo Nan didn't speak. He just swept his gaze across the room, from Worker Zhai to Crag Burst, to Xue Lei, and then to his own hands. Everyone had a share. Chapter 333. Crag Burst was stupefied when Luo Nan's gaze swept over him, but he quickly came to a realization. He immediately shrunk back. "Don't talk about self-reliance. Helping each other won't do either. That's what you spiritual dogs should do. I'm a muscle type. You might as well let me kill my way into the headquarters." Luo Nan wasn't counting on him. He laughed and shifted his gaze. "Worker Zhai, I'll have to trouble you with this matter." Worker Zhai opened his mouth, but in the end, he could only shake his head and smile bitterly. He had already expressed his helplessness on this matter many times. He was not being courteous, but had come to the final conclusion after evaluating the resources and technology involved. How could it be solved with just a "please"? He heard Luo Nan speak again. "I know that I can't be impatient, and I never thought that I would see results in a month or two. I want to take this opportunity to ask you to help me lay the foundation." Luo Nan wasn't someone who was good with words. He stopped speaking at this point and saw that Worker Zhai didn't refuse on the spot. Luo Nan followed his train of thought and continued, "I'm also on the mentally enhanced side. I'm also on the precision path. Brother Papercut also said that I should naturally get involved in the maintenance profession. I'll learn from you and you'll teach me. We can even exchange pointers." Crag Burst saw that Luo Nan was having a hard time organizing his words. He couldn't help but speak up, "You guys just happen to learn from each other." These words reminded Worker Zhai of something. His eyes lit up as he realized that this 16-year-old high school student was already an official member of the society. In terms of mental cultivation, he was definitely far above him. Luo Nan was able to have such accomplishments at such a young age. Aside from his peerless talent, Luo Nan should have quite a set of cultivation techniques. At the very least, Luo Nan's was much stronger than his wild fox Zen. In this way, not only would they be able to learn from each other, they would also be able to exchange what they need. He had spent many years outside the entrance of the association. Although he was open-minded, it was still a burden on his mind. Now that there was a new opportunity, Worker Zhai could not help but be tempted. But when he looked at the complicated structure of the shadow spider web and the thousands of diagrams on the screen, he felt a dull pain in his head. Agreeing to Luo Nan's request was easy, but Luo Nan's ultimate goal was still the dynamo core. Luo Nan didn't even have a basic direction for this. It wasn't his style to deceive himself and others. Worker Zhai unconsciously sighed again. Luo Nan knew that Worker Zhai's state of mind had changed somewhat, but there was still a hurdle in the bottom of his heart that could not be overcome. He thought for a moment and walked to the workbench. "I heard you say that you're missing parameters, right?" Worker Zhai's mind was in a mess. He took off his portable microscope and gently pinched the space between his eyebrows. "Actually, it's a problem with the direction of research. The conversion of kinetic energy was only the simplest step. How to store it, how to do the work, and how to present it in such a precise structure. There are too many things involved. I don't know much about engineering, but if you want to talk about direction, I suggest this as a starting point. Do you have a pen?" Luo Nan asked for a digital pen as he spoke. He drew a diagram on the 3D projection area, on the shadow spiderweb. With years of experience in sketching, the electronic pen's glowing lines were smooth and smooth. With just a few arcs, it drew a ball at the front of the thickest tentacle. Then, the tip of the pen cut the surface of the sphere, drawing a tetrahedron. Then, at the outer edge, sticking to the end of the tetrahedron, he drew an even larger sphere. Worker Zhai saw the entire process of Luo Nan's operation clearly. He also saw the diagram Luo Nan drew clearly. He was immediately stupefied. Sphere. Tetrahedron. Sphere. 3 diagrams. They were nested layer by layer. Their relationships were clear, and the areas where the diagrams connected and covered overlapped a great deal with the 3-layered tentacle structure of the dynamo core. It was not a rigid correspondence, but there was a sense of harmony that was pleasing to the eye. In the field of engineering, simple feelings were unreliable, but feelings were often the precursor to success. Archetype format? Crag Burst blurted out, but then he quickly corrected himself under Luo Nan's blazing gaze. Formatting theory. What a coincidence. It's quite a coincidence. There's no harm in giving it a try. Luo Nan did not understand mechanical design, but he knew that when it came to the dynamo core, he would be pleasantly surprised if he used formatting theory. This point had already been proven by Jack. He threw down the digital pen and turned around. Worker Zhai, this is what I'm thinking. There's no harm in giving it some more thought. We can keep in touch at any time. Worker Zhai's gaze was glued to the 3D diagram. He reckoned that he would not be able to remove it for a while. Luo Nan and Crag Burst bid their farewells and left. They did not take the hovering target when they left. The miniature rhombohedron was also left behind. Worker Zhai had no objections to this. Basically, they had already reached an agreement to cooperate. It could be foreseen that this agreement would last for quite a long time. Even with formatting theory as a reference, it was absolutely not a simple task to completely see through the mysteries of the dynamo core. Shui Lei hung up the call. He was having a headache about how to hide this matter for a longer period of time. As for Luo Nan, he sat in the SUV with his brows furrowed in deep thought. Cragburst could not help but ask, where are we going now? The branch's laboratory. We're going to the Shangding building? Luo Nan came back to his senses. What I mean is that I need the branch's laboratory's research materials related to the dynamo core. All of them. I also need to follow up on the follow-up progress. What's there to ponder about? Just directly read it. And then I'll be watched and monitored. Cragburst grinned. Reading the materials wasn't a problem, but according to Luo Nan's words, he needed to follow up on the research. He needed to be deeply involved. This could indeed attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. Then let's switch things up again. Let Secretary He help. It'll be done in a few minutes. An intermediary company is fine too. Speaking of which, those intermediary agents and whatnot have been suppressed quite miserably. Secretary He is quite skilled at finding entry points. The so-called intermediaries and agents were some internal members of the society. They were hired by external powers. They relied on their membership privileges to resell the society's internal resources. After the operation against Jack last time, a few intermediaries were commissioned by Quantum Corporation to buy back the relevant equipment at a high price. They bought back nearly all of the seized equipment. Cragburst still didn't feel that reading the materials was difficult. His train of thought diverged as he said, a while ago, a bunch of intermediaries were fiercely raising the price of the dynamo core. Now they've all stopped. I heard that the financial backer behind them has changed. I'm talking about Quantum Corporation. Not right now. Luo Nan shook his head. The financial backer Cragburst was talking about was Luo Nan's old friend, Yan Yongbua. Yan Yongbua hadn't been having a good time recently. He flew back and forth between Xia City and Luo City, transforming into a flying man. Even so, his position in the company was still on the verge of collapse. The enemy's situation was unstable. This alleviated some of the pressure on Luo Nan. Cragburst still didn't know where Luo Nan wanted to go after talking for a long time. He was just about to ask again when a call came through on the psychic wave network. Ying. I'm on duty today. That's right. Boss Luo's personal bodyguard. He's right next to me. Cragburst spoke a few words before transferring the call to the SUV's portable multimedia system. The control panel lit up, and the upper body of Zhang Yingying's image appeared. Zhang Yingying was dressed in tight-fitting clothes. There was a bit of sweat on her forehead, and a few strands of hair stuck to her hair. A snow-white towel hung from her neck. She was the same as Shui Lei from before. She had undergone a large amount of exercise. She waved at Luo Nan and beamed, "Hello, Boss Luo. Are you interested in swapping pointers? Let me experience your heart lantern of the eye's orifice." Next time. Luo Nan gave a simple answer. Zhang Yingying's invitation lacked sincerity. She waved her hand and ignored it. She changed the subject. "There's something I wanted to talk to you about on Monday. Since we bumped into each other, I'll mention it. There's money to be made. Do you want it?" Luo Nan frowned. "What money?" Zhang Yingying raised an eyebrow. "The money to buy the Devil Ray. Don't tell me you've collected enough." Luo Nan was very frank. "I haven't found a way yet." "Really?" Zhang Yingying laughed even more happily. "I'll give you a chance to do odd jobs. Do you want it?" "Odd jobs? Earn 60 million by doing odd jobs?" Luo Nan didn't say anything. He just looked at Zhang Yingying with cold eyes. Zhang Yingying was dissatisfied. "What kind of look is that? No one's scamming you. Our company recently expanded our business, but we don't have enough manpower. We haven't had any capable newcomers recently, so we want to subcontract out a few. The pay is quite generous. Even if we can't fill your hole, we can still make up for it. Be frank. Do you agree or not? Give me a reply." Cragburst laughed from the side. "You need to sign up for a project when doing business. What if it's a gigolo, a princess, or something like that? Do we accept it or not?" Zhang Yingying grinned in amusement. She didn't get angry. She turned her head and shouted, "Boss, Cragburst said that you went to a nightclub to sell." Holy crap. Cragburst's majestic body instantly shrunk twice. He hated that he couldn't stuff himself under the driver's seat. Even Luo Nan instinctively leaned back a bit. Zhang Yingying laughed loudly. Of course, Her Majesty Empress Wu wasn't by her side, but the effect was still excellent. Cragburst came back to his senses and immediately cursed, "You're just a fox exploiting the tiger's might, a fox is so pretty." Zhang Yingying's hands extended to the top of her head. She held her index and middle fingers together, and she nimbly crooked them twice. Cragburst spat, "You're a freaking rabbit." Luo Nan couldn't help but grin. Zhang Yingying winked at Luo Nan. She beamed as she sent Luo Nan some information. "This is the details of our subcontracted business. Time is tight. Hurry up and give us a reply." "Oh right. The boss also wanted me to tell you that thanks to you, she's had quite a few social engagements recently. She's earned quite a bit of quick money. And there are people chasing after her." "You're welcome." The smile on Luo Nan's face faded as he spoke. Zhang Yingying was clearly saying that quite a few people were trying to get Her Majesty Empress Wu's tacit approval from within the Xia City branch. This was within Luo Nan's expectations. "Hey, aren't you worried?" "What's the point of worrying? People's hearts don't grow in my stomach." Cragburst coughed. "Yingying probably wants you to go pay your respects and recognize her as your godmother. Go die." Zhang Yingying gave him the middle finger in a straightforward manner. "You won't even be able to find the door if the boss doesn't speak." Then she gave Luo Nan a smile. "Relax. Relax. Don't let your imagination run wild. Don't frown all day long. The boss and the president are watching. Headquarters won't be able to play their tricks a second time. As for making money, that's even easier. We ability users just need to find the right path. We can make money lying down." Cragburst blurted out, "Then we're still selling." Chapter 334. Zhang Yingying didn't talk for too long. She chatted with them for a bit before hanging up. The information she sent arrived at this time. Luo Nan looked it up through the hexaear while Cragburst smacked the steering wheel and laughed mischievously. "This sister is too noisy. Of course she has a good heart." Luo Nan understood what he meant and nodded. "I know." The first time he met Zhang Yingying, she was certainly quick-witted and lively, but she had a temperament that never gave way to others. She wouldn't give up until she seized the upper hand. But not only did she give Cragburst the opportunity to talk about her just now, she even put on a self-mocking attitude, stirring up the atmosphere quite lively. Luo Nan couldn't help but laugh when he thought of Zhang Yingying's finger curling. But his smile soon vanished and he spoke softly. "I seem to be quite depressed recently." Otherwise, with Zhang Yingying's temperament, why would she deliberately make him happy? Cragburst laughed loudly. "You're stressed, right? That's normal. At your age, if you're still giggling and carefree after bearing all these things, then you really need to see a doctor." "Really? That's normal." "Of course it's normal. Back when I was in the Coast Defense Force, every time there was a rushing tide." You know what a rushing tide is, right? It's when a large number of mutants use the astronomical spring tide as an opportunity to attack the coast defense line. It's called a landslide and a tsunami. It blots out the sky and covers the earth. Cragburst started the car and the jeep drove out of the parking lot amidst the rumbling of the engine. It merged into the low-altitude magnetic rail of the electronic city. He continued to speak. "After the warning and before the start of the battle, it's the most torturous time. There are even suicides in the barracks. A good portion of them are seasoned veterans who have experienced hundreds of battles. It's very likely that they'll survive even if they enter the battlefield. Humans have a limit to their endurance. Once the limit is exceeded, they become a freak. They're done for. But I can see that you're fine. You're far from your limit. Crag Burst extended his hand as he spoke. The distance between his thumb and middle finger was quite considerable. Luo Nan laughed and sighed after laughing. There are still changes. He had a feeling that his reactions were a bit different when he encountered trouble. One had to know that what had just been discovered in the electronic city was the dynamo core. His father had secretly gifted him a mystical item, the key to allowing an altered human like Jack to become a burner, the level of mysterious technology that Earth's technology had yet to reach, and it even involved the mysterious power that was hidden behind the colossus that was Quantum Corporation. If this was a month ago, he would have disregarded everything and rushed to the Daoist gym to find the gym master and ask him about it. He would have pestered him to death to get an answer. But now, even though his conviction to research the dynamo core was firm, it was still a long way to go, even if his heart was about to be torn apart by an intense desire. Why? It was probably because he had some misgivings. In just a month or so, he had made enemies one after another, and they were all powerful forces in the world. After a few times, even a newborn calf's horns would be flattened. Luo Nan had a faint premonition that what awaited him in front of him was a deadly minefield. It was fine if he didn't trigger it, but once he did, he wouldn't even have the chance to turn back. Sharpening one's tools was the right choice. But on the other hand, waiting in ambush also came with a price. All sorts of thoughts couldn't help but emerge in his mind. They interweaved into a dense and gloomy net, and the pressure followed him like a shadow. Indeed, he hadn't reached his limit, but he wasn't far from being a freak. Crag Burst drove his car through the flow of traffic. He shot a glance at Luo Nan and grinned. Nanster, I need to say a few words to you. Since you're a man, everyone has pressure. You can find ways to vent, but you can't show it on your face. Otherwise, people will look down on you. Vent? Cigarettes, alcohol, women. Pooh. I'm talking about learning, and learning. Turning pressure into motivation. Luo Nan copied Zhang Yingying and gave Crag Burst the middle finger. Crag Burst was a bit embarrassed. Don't look into the minor details. What I'm saying is that we can't let the weekend go to waste. If you don't have any plans, I'll arrange a place for everyone to relax. Cigarettes, alcohol, and women. Don't be a bad kid. Crag Burst's rough voice cut off Luo Nan's thoughts. Luo Nan laughed and asked, where's the Trigate district? It's between the main city district and Man City. It's almost 200 kilometers away. Why are we going there? Nothing. I saw the information Yingying sent over. It says that the partner is Trigate Security LLC. They're registered in the Trigate district. I've never heard of them before. Oh, this used to be the camp of the Xia City garrison troops. It was removed not too long ago. The security company you're talking about should have a military background. Not bad. It's quite easy to earn money from the government and the military at this stage. What kind of business is it? Luo Nan read from the information, native species, genetic and ecological maintenance. What? Crag Burst didn't hear it clearly for the first time. Luo Nan repeated the information, clearly reading the relevant introduction. It's a patrol and reconnaissance business. It's related to mutants. F***CK. What a scam. Crag Burst smacked the steering wheel with force and the horn exploded. This time it was Luo Nan who didn't understand. This business isn't good? It has nothing to do with business. I'm saying that as long as there's a similar business, it means that the government and the military are scamming the common people. F***CK. What the hell are the garrison troops doing? Crag Burst transformed into a furious youth in an instant. Luo Nan flipped through the information and slowly came to an understanding. Native species, genetic and ecological maintenance was a long and awkward name. Using one word to describe it, it was, mending the pen after the sheep is lost. The mutants that were isolated in the wilderness and the ocean would occasionally break through layers upon layers of defense due to special circumstances. They would appear within the city of Xia City. This business was responsible for searching and killing these infiltrating mutants to ensure the safety of the city. Speaking of which, there were quite a few mutants within the city of Xia City. It was quite popular for rich families to raise 1 or 2 mutants. The great Maw Basilisk that Rui Wen had killed and the flying devil ray that Luo Nan had subdued were all mutants. But these mutants had all gone through strict inspection and quarantine procedures. Their negative effects were already reduced to the minimum. The fellows that had accidentally infiltrated were different. They often carried highly pathogenic bacteria. There were even some that had broken through reproductive isolation and were able to reproduce with Earth's native species for the next generation. Once the related, mixed blood, species spread out within the city's ecosystem, a few small mutations could lead to a great disaster under the enormous impetus of the population. The hidden destructive power of these mutants was even more astonishing than the mutants on the surface. Crag Burst reached out and patted Luo Nan on the shoulder. The task is arduous and glorious. That's what you say when you clean up the mess of the government and the military. Luo Nan grunted but said, "It's more suitable for me." That's right. From what I remember, there aren't many who are stronger than you in reconnaissance. But this is very time-consuming and patience-consuming. Hey, that's not right, right? Crag Burst suddenly came to a realization. Luo Nan was still a student. His extracurricular studies were very arduous. How could he have the free time to run around the city with someone else? Chapter 335. In November, it was said that the Arctic glaciers were melting. The weather was abnormal. A cold current flowed south, pushing the moist and cold sea winds through the city. Xia City, a coastal city, became unworthy of its name in the blink of an eye. It was as if winter had arrived a month earlier. A layer of frost had actually formed on the windows of the classroom in the morning. Fortunately, this physics class was held in a large classroom. 300 people were packed to the brim. The entire classroom was quite warm without the need for any heating equipment. Luo Nan sat in a row near the window. He was attentively listening to the lecture and taking notes. Various knowledge points, as well as their corresponding diagrams and formulas, were displayed on the standard holographic screen. They were divided into categories and arranged in a clear order. Luo Nan's serious attitude made him look like a good seedling of a gifted student. If Xue Lei hadn't been classmates with Luo Nan for over a month, Xue Lei might have been confused just by looking at Luo Nan's current performance. "Hey, don't you have an appointment this morning?" "It's a meeting." Luo Nan didn't even raise his head as he corrected him. "What time?" 9:30. "You're leaving after class." "I'll go with you." "You want to skip class?" Xue Lei was baffled. "How do I go if I don't skip class?" "Then I won't go. The agreement doesn't require me to show up in person." Luo Nan made Xue Lei dizzy with just a few words. The bell for the end of class rang at this time, signifying the end of the first class of the morning. The lecturer indicated for a temporary break, and the classroom rumbled with voices. It suddenly became noisy. Luo Nan continued to adjust the structure of the notes on the holographic screen. The core content did not come from him. It was Worker Zhai's handwriting. It practically covered all the knowledge points of the high school level. All Luo Nan needed to do was fill in the details and do the corresponding high-intensity exercises. Needless to say, Luo Nan felt his thoughts become much clearer after a few tutoring sessions with Worker Zhai. There were some immediate results. Luo Nan was neither fast nor slow, but Xue Lei was even more confused. He simply gave Luo Nan a push. "What does it mean?" "It means that you have to split your attention and become an incarnation. You have to take care of both sides." And so on and so forth. Xue Lei's eyes went wide as he listened. Luo Nan finally finished adjusting the notes while he was in a daze. He stretched his back. Coincidentally, a student opened the window. The damp and cold wind poured in, clashing with the heating inside the room. It actually jolted the spirits of a few drowsy students. Luo Nan and Shui Lei both turned their heads to look outside the window. Heading northeast from here, passing through the gaps between the buildings, was the wetland jungle at the end of the ash-gray clouds. Right now, it was also dark over there. The colors of the sky and the landscape were mixed together, and it was hard to distinguish them at first glance. Normally, Shui Lei wouldn't mind looking at this scenery. But when he heard Luo Nan mention those arrangements, Shui Lei couldn't help but think a bit more, that it's in the forest right now, right? Yes, as a supervisor. Luo Nan replied without thinking. He suddenly laughed, it's really useful. Shui Lei was baffled. He looked at Luo Nan again and felt that Luo Nan's smile was quite cold. It was very awkward. Luo Nan didn't speak any further. He stood up and walked to the side of the window, gazing into the distant wetland jungle. The sky was gloomy, and the long river that cut through the forest was not visible. It was like a long gray belt, half hidden and half visible, cutting into the depths of the forest. A few water birds flapped their wings and flew up. They could be considered agile, but the scale was far from what it was a few days ago. Mutant? Oh, King Mutant. That fellow has destroyed this place. Our work will go back 10 years. When the water birds flew into the sky, a small wooden boat was sailing on the long river that cut through the forest. There were 4 people on the boat. 2 young men held wooden oars in their hands. They used the most primitive method to power the small boat. Right now they were so tired that their tongues were hanging out. They also had to endure the incessant grumbling of the old man. They wanted to jump into the river and commit suicide for a time. As for old man Wu Zunliang, who had given them a great deal of mental pressure, he was already 90 years old this year, but his spirit was still hale and hearty. Even long periods of scientific research in the wild were as relaxed as taking a stroll. The sampling and research within the campus was unable to consume his excess energy, and this made his mouth even more idle. I can hear the noise of machinery even though I'm 2 kilometers away. This is undoubtedly pollution. Those people who issued the construction permit are all grandsons. The great upheaval a week ago had turned the ecosystem of the wetland jungle into a pot of porridge. The sudden cold wave was like adding hail to snow. It made the various departments of zoology, botany, ecology, genetics. Scholars, professors, and researchers wanted to cry but had no tears. At this time, some people who disregarded the vile situation and still carried out construction work within the jungle had undoubtedly become the target of loathing. Unfortunately, from a realistic point of view, their negative emotions were completely useless. The construction team at North Bank Gear had all kinds of documents. They held the permits of the Environmental Protection Department and the school. The construction process was also carried out in strict accordance with the relevant requirements. It was done impeccably. Wu Zunliang had tried to take advantage of his seniority to call the construction team to stop so as to avoid an even more fatal impact on the ecosystem of the wetland that was already on the verge of collapse. But the result left him very disappointed and very unhappy. He was unhappy and wanted to complain and vent. In any case, his wife wasn't at his side, so there was no one to reprimand. Before the 2 experimental dogs, who had changed jobs, went completely crazy, a tall woman wearing hunting clothes at the bow of the boat glanced back and said with a smile, "Teacher, in terms of age, there's nothing wrong with them calling you grandfather. It's just that suddenly having a bunch of big nephews gives me a headache." Old man Wu pointed at her, "At such a young age, you already want to be an aunt. Why don't you find a partner?" The one old Pan introduced, "That's something." "Teacher, if you can't remember, I can't remember either." The tall woman adjusted the brimmed hat on her head, and then her gaze cut to the 2 suffering experimental dogs. "Seniors, are you tired? Let's change hands." "No need, no need." The 2 experimental dogs stuck out their tongues, shook their heads and wagged their tails, and simultaneously paddled with all their might a few times to prove that they still had strength to spare. The woman in hunting clothes didn't say anything else, and continued to chat with old man Wu. Teacher Pan hasn't been in good health recently, and often suffers from insomnia. Given her personality, she'll think too much when something happens to North Bank gear. It's better to take advantage of this mess and finish repairing it as soon as possible, so as to avoid more trouble in the future. Hearing the student mention his wife, Old Man Wu smacked his lips and said, "Don't worry about salty carrots," before he didn't say anything else. However, it didn't take long for Wu Zunliang to look at the messy state of the jungle on both sides of the long river, and he couldn't help cursing again. Mutants are F*King exterminating things, and Cloud City Water Village actually does foster breeding. That dog's hit aquarium, I shouldn't have agreed to help. Ah! Old Man Wu's chest drooped, and he stomped his feet. With each word, the wooden boat rocked back and forth, threatening to capsize at any moment. The two experimental dogs' faces were deathly pale, and the woman in hunting attire at the bow of the boat pressed down on the brim of her hat, smiling as she watched him vent. As an old-school ecologist, Wu Zunliang loathed mutants to the extreme. The devastation and continuous mutation of these monsters had destroyed the ecological theory of the Third World War, practically negating all the value of his life before the age of 50. In the following 40 years, he continued to make achievements, and he had numerous works to his name. The people of the world gasped in admiration at his grand feat of changing the field of research in his old age and climbing to new heights. Little did he know that his love for this field of study was about to be exhausted by the ugly and complex genes of the mutants. Acumen College's wetland jungle had been practically completely isolated from the influence of the mutants for the past few decades. It was one of the few places that could evoke the ideals of his original life. But now, even this place had been ruined. Old Man Wu truly felt that death was better than life. "I'm going to write a letter to the school. No, I'm going to write a letter to the municipal government. Those grandsons of Cloud City Water Village, I'm going to punish them until they go bankrupt." "If you want to write, then write," the woman in hunting attire echoed. At the same time, her gaze swept across the river shore, and she said with a light laugh, "I'm actually more interested in that bald crow. With that kind of body, it's already surpassed a raven, right? I don't think a similar giant phenomenon has ever appeared before." "Which one?" When Old Man Wu turned his head to look, the large black-winged bird circling in the air had already disappeared into the depths of the forest, disappearing without a trace. It just so happened that the river curved at this moment, and the forest ahead was sparse. Another part of the lake had opened up, and one could faintly see gear standing on the north shore. It was covered in rust. When he truly saw the building, Old Man Wu, who had previously been muttering curses, became silent. He looked for a long time before turning his face and asking about the crow. "Did you get a picture?" "It was sent to my mailbox." "Teacher, I have an appointment, so I have to leave early today." Oh, you mentioned it yesterday." "Go, there's nothing to do right now anyway." "Oh, the four sides of this place aren't touching. Let young deer and the others row a bit more." The two experimental dogs' hearts were filled with tears, but they still had to agree. "Yeah, it's a bit. Let's row a bit more. Just go straight to the shore. It's impossible for teachers' students to get lost in the forest." Old Man Wu laughed heartily. A moment later, the wooden boat neared the shore. The woman in hunting attire gracefully leapt ashore, and the small boat moved forward, pulling apart the distance. Old Man Wu shouted, "Let's go home and eat tonight." "No need, someone's taking care of our meals." The woman in hunting attire waved her hand, turned around, and entered the forest, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Old Man Wu sat back on the boat and turned his head to look at the gear building on the opposite shore. He sighed and patted the side of the boat. "Control the speed. Don't forget to take samples." In the span of a few days, the North Shore gear, which had burned quite a large area, had already more or less recovered from its exterior appearance. The overall feeling of having been scoured by time made it not require too much of an external appearance. The current project was mainly the installation and remodeling of the internal equipment. On the day of headquarters operation, the destruction caused by that damned tank had practically razed the central control room to the ground. When the Devil Ray had put out the fire, the water cannon it had released had also caused a large area of electrical circuit damage. All kinds of pipelines had to be buried anew. The construction workers and technicians were carrying equipment in and out. It was a scene of work in full swing. The bald crow flapped its wings to cushion its fall. It steadily landed on the railing of a viewing platform at the top of the building. From this position, it could see the figures of people entering and exiting the building. It could also see some areas inside the building through the glass. Inside the building, there was a construction worker pushing a high-precision imaging instrument. He openly walked around each floor of the building. From time to time, people would come over and input data obtained from other locations, continuously adjusting the parameters and establishing a database that might be even more detailed than the design blueprints. The scope and intensity of the construction workers' work, when converted to value, already far exceeded the remuneration they received from the school. Chapter 336. It was 9:15 in the morning. The second morning class of Acumen College had already begun. The surrounding schools were more or less the same. The students, who were the main consumers, were bound to the campus. The streets of the large living area were relatively deserted. There were only magnetic rails extending out at low altitudes. Flying cars streaked past from time to time. Acumen College was located in the Pingjiang district. It could compete for the throne of the lowest average building height in Xia City. Even though Cloud City Water Village had a super tall building complex in the center, it only made the surrounding environment seem shorter and flatter. The crow flapped its wings and skillfully streaked through the gaps between the surrounding buildings. It soon locked onto the entrance to an underground parking lot. Taking advantage of the pedestrians not noticing, it practically stuck to the top of the doorway and flew in. It twisted left and right and soon arrived at the underground third floor. It found its final target amidst the hundreds of parked cars. Amidst the flapping of its wings, the crow landed on the roof of a commoner's SUV. Its jet-black claws lightly knocked and the sunroof immediately opened, swallowing the crow inside. The car was filled with the aroma of beef. In the driver's seat, a robust middle-aged man held a bag of freshly baked roast beef. He directly stuffed a piece of maroon meat into his mouth. The enormous crow entered the car. When it retracted its wings, it smacked the man's head. He didn't even raise his head. He was very focused. The man's skin was red. This kind of skin color was quite common among Caucasians, but it felt a bit sickly on an Asian. He had a tuft of beard on his chin. It looked like an artist's beard, but it was placed on his face. It looked very crude. The crow sized up this person with curiosity. Then it stood in the front passenger seat. Its claws hooked onto the seat cushion. It stood quite steadily. Its enormous bird body already exceeded 70 centimeters. It stood in the front passenger seat at about the same height as a normal person sitting. The man turned his head to look after swallowing most of the meat in his mouth. He met the crow's jet-black pupils and went, "Oh." He freed a hand and rummaged through the storage box in the middle of the car. He took out a box and tilted the food packaging, pretending to pour it into the box. "Want to eat? If you want, I'll share some with you." This must be someone in the same trade. Otherwise, why would he treat a crow like this? This enormous crow was none other than Luo Nan's pet. It was also Luo Nan's earliest believer, Ink. Right now Luo Nan and Ink shared a view. He could control it, so Ink shook its head. "If you don't want to eat, then forget it." The man stuffed another piece of roasted beef into his mouth and chewed hard. Then, he reached out and grabbed a rubber band-like object from the center console. He put it on his index finger and shook it. It was obvious that the material was flexible and had a purplish-red luster. It was very eye-catching. "Lift your leg." Luo Nan was very cooperative. He sent the command to Ink, and Ink jumped a bit. It raised a claw crookedly. The man used 2 fingers to pull open the rubber band and wrapped it around Ink's shins. Immediately, he tightened the band against the skin. With the claws blocking the lower part, it wouldn't fall off. There was a purplish-red circle around Chimo's foot, which was also quite eye-catching. From what Ink could sense, it didn't seem to be affected at all. As the man chewed on the meat, he mumbled, "This gadget is specially made. It's a communication device. It's very simple to use, and it's more suitable for you psychics. You'll know once you try it." A communicator strapped to his leg? Luo Nan pierced it with his mental strength, but there was no response. Then he interfered with the material plane a bit, immediately triggering a mechanism. The rubber band trembled slightly, sending out a corresponding signal. "Hello, hello." There was no sound in the car. The middle-aged man in the driver's seat tapped his ears. "I hear you." So this was how it could be used. It was indeed quite convenient and effortless. Luo Nan reckoned that even if he didn't comprehend the coupling technique, he would still be able to realize external communication by relying on the paper-blowing interference power from before. Right now, there was only one question. Luo Nan asked through the communication rubber band, "Isn't it a bit roundabout? You can use the hex ear, right?" Luo Nan still remembered the last time he and Crag Burst acted together. The two used the hex ear to communicate without hindrance on the psychic wave network. They were able to seamlessly connect to the society's large operation. Why did they need to open a new communication channel? That's your communication network. I can't reach it. In addition, your partner hasn't joined the society. That's all. Partner? Then you. Oh, what's your name, Master? My surname is Jean. Master Jean. 4th tone. Gujang Jean. You can just call me Old Jean. In any case, I'm just a driver. Luo Nan felt that this person was a bit emotional. Perhaps his situation was similar to Worker Zhai's. He was a person within the circle, but he wasn't an awakened. It was normal for him to be a bit jealous. In any case, this person was a hired employee of the hidden indigo firm. Luo Nan didn't need to worry about his mental state. Zhang Yingying had played such a trick. She had Luo Nan hide behind the scenes and had the spiritually attached crow do the reconnaissance. There was nothing to criticize in terms of safety, but when it came to doing things, there was always a bit of mystifying. Luo Nan needed the cooperation of a partner. Originally, Luo Nan believed that this straightforward driver before him would be his future partner. But from the tone of his voice, it seemed that it was someone else. Knocking sounds rang out from the car window as he was pondering. Old Jean unlocked the door, and someone opened the door to sit in the back. The person wore a brimmed hat, and the shadow covered half of his face. He was quite mysterious, and he leaned back just as he sat down. His body movements were quite relaxed. Old Jean, my partner. Oh, a 70-centimeter bald crow. He's a giant. The person in the back swept his gaze over Ink, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. He immediately let out a gasp of admiration. Normal bald crows were around 50 centimeters in length when they reached adulthood. Ink's physique far exceeded that. Just a search on the internet would reveal this. But this person was able to distinguish the species of crows with a single glance and was well versed in the relevant knowledge. He should be an enthusiast or a professional. The person took off the brimmed hat as they spoke. Her black hair hung down like a waterfall, setting off a bright and beautiful face full of vitality. It seemed to brighten up the dusky car. Yes, this was a woman. She looked very young, around 20 years old. Her skin was a healthy wheat color. It wasn't dark, but it revealed a bright luster of life. To use a common saying, she was full of collagen, displaying an abundance of vitality. She casually tied her hair into a high ponytail. It could be seen that she was quite tall. When she straightened her back, her head nearly touched the roof of the car. And the hunting clothes on her body were tight, making her figure appear all the more curvaceous. Old Jean, I'm not late, right? Look at the speed of the car. Old Jean gave a simple reply. Then he poured the entire roast beef from the bag into his mouth. His cheeks bulged as he chewed with force. He knocked on the control panel, and the car started up in smart mode, driving out of the underground parking lot. Luo Nan was speechless at such a bold way of eating. The beautiful woman in the back seat extended her hand over at this time. Luo Nan instinctively felt that she wanted to shake his hand and greet him. He wanted to order ink to extend its wings in response, but the crow's head had already been struck. Then it was rubbed left and right. This crow isn't bad. Oh, or should I say spirit bird, lich, or shikigami? Which one sounds better? Peony has brought along a communication device. You two can directly talk. Old Jean spoke vaguely, giving Luo Nan an introduction. Peony. Luo Nan touched the rubber band and gave it a try. Hi, Mr. Crow. Hello. Hello. In any case, Miss Peony, it would be even better if you could stop pressing on Ink's head. This giant is called Ink. That's easy to remember. It'll be easier to greet him in the future. Also, there's no need to add Miss. Peony is my nickname. Just call me directly. Then you can just call me Crow. According to Zhang Yingying's explanation, everyone participating in this operation didn't know his true identity, including his partner. Of course, this was another layer of insurance, so Luo Nan accepted it. Peony laughed. Her eyes were very beautiful, and the corners of her eyes were very long. There was a clear reclining silkworm under her eyes, and the color was bright and moist. When she laughed, her eyes would curve into exquisite crescent moons. It was very alluring. Okay. I'll leave Mr. to Ink. Mr. Ink sounds pretty good. Scratch. Ink's fuzzy self-awareness awakened when he heard someone say his name in succession. He opened his mouth to speak, but his voice was unavoidably hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. This means that you've agreed, right? At this time, the civilian SUV they were riding in had already cut into the high-speed magnetic rail. According to the driving route, they needed to take a detour from Cloud City Water Village to rise into the sky. Crow shot a glance at the skyscrapers that towered into the clouds in the distance as he changed lanes. He especially looked at Ocean Sky Cloud City, which was at the very front. He couldn't see the details of the building from his position, but waves of tourists had come over since a week ago. They especially loved the viewing platform on the 142nd floor of Ocean Sky Cloud City. They stayed for half a day or even a day at a time. Not only did they use the viewing binoculars on the platform, they also brought all sorts of equipment with them. They watched with great delight. This group of tourists formed an interesting contrast with some of the construction workers of gear. There were also many types of data and information exchanged between them. It could be said that they thoroughly researched gear from the inside out. What was even more interesting was that the origins of these people were quite complicated from the current intelligence. There were at least 4 or 5 groups of financial backers. There were conflicts between them, but there were also collaborations. They each showed off their schemes and played to their heart's content. But no matter how they fought openly and covertly, these people all had a clear goal. They were all observing and speculating. Was there a deeper secret in this building called gear? Could they do something about it? Therefore, Luo Nan understood that gear seemed quiet right now, but it had already sunk into a turbulent undercurrent. Moreover, it was sinking deeper and deeper. As for why it was like this, the reason was still unclear. The pressure. Nothing was said along the way. 15 minutes later, the car drove into another underground parking lot. This place belonged to a certain business hotel in the city district. This area was connected to the recycling stratum. When the car went down, a dispirited and deranged figure wandered about on the other side of the thick wall. His line of sight was unable to penetrate the car and the thick wall, but the area with a radius of 30 meters was within the range of Ink's perception. It transformed into a detailed scene that was reflected in Luo Nan's mind several dozen kilometers away. Under pure observation mode, whether it was Luo Nan himself or his believers, their mental strength could penetrate through walls. There was nothing it couldn't reach. The only thing that could be limited was the limited range that they could cover. A radius of 30 meters. This was the current limit of Ink's natural perception. However, Luo Nan could also use telekinesis and other methods to temporarily expand it by a large margin. Luo Nan compared the relevant information and felt that this kind of ability was already enough. The car stopped precisely at the center of the parking lot. The elevator was right in front of it. Old Jean smacked his lips. He had already swallowed his beef clean. Get off the car. There's nothing else for me to do. Chapter 337. Under old Jin's urging, Peony got out of the car first and put on her wide-brimmed hat once more. She raised her hand and fiddled with the back of her head a couple of times. Her high, knotted ponytail pierced through the top of her hat's buckle and swayed slightly. It was lustrous, bright, and beautiful, yet also appeared lively and dynamic. Right now, Luo Nan could confirm that Peony's figure was quite tall. She had the absolute figure of a model. At first glance, she could compete with his older cousin, Mo Ya. In other words, they were more than 180 centimeters tall. This put a lot of pressure on the youth who was only about 170 centimeters tall. Fortunately, he didn't have to reveal it now. Ink jumped out from the side window, unfurled its wings, and with a slight turn, flew forward. Luo Nan saw that the elevator had stopped on the ground floor. He pressed a button with his interference force in passing, and the elevator lights lit up. The doors opened just as Peony arrived. Thank you, Mr. Ink. Peony smiled unhurriedly, but she thanked the wrong target. However, when she smiled, the silkworm under her eye sockets became even clearer, outlining the shape of a crescent moon. The bottom of her eyes seemed to be shrouded by a light mist, misty and indistinct, making her look even more charming. Amidst her smile, Peony walked into the elevator and extended her hand to lightly brush her shoulder. Aren't you going to take a break? Luo Nan didn't express his opinion. Ink made its own decision. Perhaps it felt that the elevator was too narrow and that it couldn't spread its wings, so it simply landed on Peony's left shoulder. Wow, it's heavy. Be it from the perspective of species or the real world, Ink was indeed a big guy. At this moment, its two claws were hooked onto the shoulder of Peony's hunting clothes, and its wings were tucked in tightly. Otherwise, it would have forced Peony to tilt her head. The elevator went up and soon reached the 50th floor. There was a receptionist at the exit. When she saw Peony, especially the enormous crow on her shoulder, she stared blankly for a moment before coming forward to greet her. Hello, are you Lady Peony of the Hidden Indigo firm? Peony grunted. Her attitude was still quite adequate. When the receptionist's line of sight swept across Peony's pretty face, she was somewhat sluggish, but then her heart inexplicably chilled. He quickly attributed the reason to the crows. Let's not talk about whether the crow that occupied the shoulder of the beauty was majestic or not. Its posture was habitually leaning forward. Its height seemed fine, but its tail feathers and head formed a slanted line. It looked like someone was leaning forward and staring at you. The more one looked at it, the stranger its pitch-black eyes were. The receptionist couldn't help but take a step back. Realizing that she had lost her composure, she smiled awkwardly and took the opportunity to lean sideways. She gestured with her hand, "This way, please." Peony nodded and walked into the small conference room ahead. The room was about 40 square meters. The tables and chairs were arranged in an oval shape. The center was empty, and there was some equipment inside. At this time, the equipment was not turned on, but most of the chairs were already occupied. There were about 20 people. The appointed time was 9:30, and it was already 10:32. They were 2 minutes late, but the meeting hadn't started yet. It seemed like they weren't the only ones who were late. Seeing Peony come in with an enormous crow, everyone in the room turned their heads to size her up. Peony maintained her polite and distant smile. She withstood the gazes of everyone and directly found a place to sit down. She also brought out a curious gaze and swept it over the faces of everyone in the room. Her body language was very relaxed. Ink jumped down from her shoulder and stood on the table in front of her. Under Luo Nan's repeated warnings, Ink folded its wings and shut its mouth. It didn't utter a single sound, but its head twisted back and forth and its eyeballs followed suit. The beauty and the crow shifted their gazes and switched their targets at the same time. One person and one bird were brazenly watching the other participants. In the end, it was these people, who held the advantage in numbers, who couldn't take it anymore. They diverted their gazes one after another. Some of the people in the room had wanted to get closer to the beauty and greet her, but when they saw this situation, they dispelled these thoughts one after another. The atmosphere was bewildered and awkward. And so, of the 20 or so people in the conference room, only Peony's expression didn't change from beginning to end. Luo Nan couldn't help but admire her. He had Ink as a cover, and he was several dozen kilometers away. He had no misgivings. And Peony's performance was clearly experienced. She was calm and composed, unyielding, and imposing. I wonder what kind of work she does in the hidden indigo firm. Luo Nan discovered that he had been so busy these past few days that he was dizzy. He knew very little about his future partner. Right when he was pondering whether or not he should find Zhang Yingying and ask her for some information, the door rang out again. Another person entered the room. After a brief pause, the person walked straight over. The person simply pulled out a chair next to Peony. Only then did he bow and smile. "Can I sit here?" "Feel free." Peony turned her face to the side and roughly sized up the person. She didn't refuse. The person sat next to Peony. He was a young man wearing casual clothes. His semi-long curly hair was quite eye-catching. The ends of his hair hung down to his shoulders, and it was a bit fluffy. His complexion was extremely fair, and he wore an earring in the middle of his left ear. Luo Nan was certain that this bro's stylist was absolutely amazing. Not only did he not look like a sissy, he even used his hairstyle to further embellish the lines of his slightly mixed blood cheeks. This matched his healthy physique with wide shoulders and narrow waist. He had quite a manly air, and he had the style of an aristocrat from the old European royal families. After the person sat down, he first introduced himself. "Hello. My surname is Long. I'm ranked 7th. My friends call me Long 7. I just joined this group. I'll take the liberty to ask for your name. You can just call me Peony." "Peony." Long 7's gaze swept across Peony's cheeks. In the end, it landed on her wide-brimmed hat. "I'm guessing that you're a student of Acumen College." Luo Nan was caught off guard. Only then did he discover that he had been overthinking things. From beginning to end, he had just been conversing with Peony. Peony didn't have any ill feelings toward this handsome mixed-blood kid. A smile blossomed from the corner of her eyes. She asked very cooperatively, "What's the reason?" "Please forgive me for speaking bluntly. As an amateur team formed from students, Jungle Owl has just entered the main WCG tournament. They've only participated in the 10 Days in the Wilderness event. Their results are even more lackluster. The majority of their peripheral products will only be digested within Acumen College." Only now did Luo Nan notice that the wide-brimmed hat Peony was wearing had a logo in the shape of a nightingale on the front. Presumably, this was the logo of the so-called Jungle Owl. It can't be that bad. Jungle Owl's Pippi is very good-looking. He has a lot of fangirls both inside and outside the school. Peony's body leaned a bit more to the side. She propped an elbow on the table, and her fingertips pushed against the brim of the wide-brimmed hat. This careless action made the hat tilt a bit, but it gave her an even more carefree and casual air. Long 7 didn't say anything, but the eyeballs of the other participants who were sneaking glances at them nearly popped out. Next, Peony and Long 7 really did chat about topics related to esports. It was just that Long 7 was very familiar with the styles, members, and battle records of each team. Peony was more interested in the good-looking people of each team, regardless of gender. I really do care about good-looking people. Other people watch the live broadcast of fights, but I watch the highlights, interviews, and so on. Peony didn't hide her hobby at all. She giggled in extreme delight. Long 7 was just about to speak when he suddenly froze. Peony propped up her chin with one hand and extended the other under his startled gaze. Her slender fingers lightly brushed past the locks of hair at the side of Long 7's temples. It seemed to even touch his skin. Of course, you're not bad either. The ambiguity level was off the charts. The thrill level was off the charts. The vast majority of people in the conference room were eavesdropping and peeking at the conversation between the handsome man and the beautiful woman. Some people were caught off guard by Peony's actions. They drew in a cold breath. There were also some people whose eyes lit up with raging flames. The reason for this was that grass had grown in their hearts. Long 7 instantly recovered from his astonishment. He instinctively reached out to grab Peony's probing fingers, but he was still half a step too late. Peony's slender hand noiselessly pulled back, but her thumb and forefinger were pinching a dazzling silver earring. It was the one on Long 7's ear. Seeing the object on Peony's fingertips, Long 7's complexion became grave for the first time since they met. "Miss Peony, just call me Peony." Amidst this seemingly familiar conversation, Peony's posture didn't change. She merely pinched the earring and brought it closer to her eyes, sizing it up in detail. Later on, her fingers clearly exerted more force, but the earring that resembled a fine loop didn't react. Long 7's complexion was heavy. Just as he was about to say something, the beauty in front of him extended her slender hand again and delivered it to his eyes. "It's a pretty good earring. Is it platinum?" Long 7 didn't answer Peony's question. In the first instant, he took back the earring and put it back on his ear. His taut face relaxed a little, but he could no longer return to his previous cheerful state. The atmosphere became increasingly strange. Ink sensed the change in the atmosphere. It subconsciously flapped its wings and even dropped a feather. Peony casually picked it up and giggled as she poked Ink's head. She minded her own business and played happily. It seemed that she didn't take Long 7's change in attitude to heart in the slightest. What a self-centered woman. Just as Luo Nan made his initial judgment, another person walked into the conference room. He stood directly at the front of the oval conference table and swept his gaze across the conference room. He nodded and said, "Everyone's here. Let's start the meeting." The last person to enter had an elderly appearance. He was at least 70 years old, but his posture was ramrod straight. His self-introduction was full of energy, and his voice was sonorous. "I am Wu Bin, the Executive Director of Trigate Corporation. I am also the person in charge of this project and the organizer of the team. I will be the one to coordinate the specific operations of the project for some time to come. There are 2 trustworthy professionals present here, and there are also the elites of the company. They all possess formidable strength. I believe that this maintenance operation will certainly achieve satisfactory results." Wu Bin's words were a bit bureaucratic, but this was in line with Trigate Corporation's judgment of having a military background. Wu Bin's words were inflexible, but this didn't mean that his brain was rigid. Wu Bin knew very well that this was the first time the experts he had invited were meeting with the members of the team. They needed to have an intuitive understanding. He took advantage of this opportunity to point at the subordinate beside him. "We'll start with you. Make a self-introduction." The subordinate suddenly stood up. He was just about to speak when Peony raised her hand from the middle of the conference table. Her fingertips were still holding the inky and translucent blue crow feather. "Director Wu, the Hidden Indigo firm hopes that you can explain the personnel composition of the operation team first. According to the contract signed between the firm and your esteemed company, we should be the sole professional instructors and commanders. Two professionals. What do you mean by that? Her words silenced the pitiful subordinate. He could only look stupidly at Wu Bin. Chapter 338. Wu Bin furrowed his brows slightly when faced with Peony's inquiry. Then he revealed a smile and said, "It's like this. According to the latest intelligence, some of our targets have the ability to spit out large doses of radiation for a short period of time. They like to live in radiation zones, so I specifically invited Mr. Long 7. Wu Bin extended his hand as he spoke. Long 7 was very cooperative. He stood up to greet the people present. His bearing and demeanor were first-rate. His natural and relaxed body language diluted the awkward atmosphere in the conference room. There should be applause here. The participants really did start clapping. Wu Bin invited Long 7 to sit down and continued, "Mr. Long 7 is a professional talent recommended by Northern Hope Corporation. He possesses the special ability to use radiation harmlessly. Northern Hope Corporation's vision is worthy of trust as the world's top provider of human resources solutions. I also believe in Mr. Long 7's professionalism. At the same time, please believe in our sincerity in cooperation and our ability to fulfill the contract." Luo Nan already had a rough judgment when he heard this. This team should have frequent dealings with ability users. Talking about special abilities was as natural as drinking water to them. They didn't pay much attention to Ink, a strange pet. Presumably, they were rich in experience and didn't find it strange. This saved them a lot of worry. Peony interlaced her 10 fingers. The back of her hand arched slightly to support her chin. She appeared to be even more focused. However, the crow feather that lightly scratched the side of her face revealed a bit of interest. Of course, no matter what position a beauty was in, she looked good. She also had the wonderful effect of dispelling the negative emotions of others. She smiled just like this. "The firm has no doubts about your company's strength and reputation. But out of professional considerations, all matters must be led by the firm during the investigation and target locking process. This point cannot be changed because of the team's composition, the target species, the environment, and other factors." Wu Bin immediately responded, "We won't go back on the matters emphasized in the agreement." Peony's gaze switched to Long 7's face. "The firm will not be responsible for any losses caused by the partners or team members who violate the terms of the agreement during the operation. We will withdraw from this project according to the agreement and demand compensation." Wu Bin confirmed, "No objections." Long 7 gazed at Peony from the side. 2 seconds passed before he laughed, "I provide specialized services. Miss Peony oversees the overall situation. The two don't contradict each other. I will certainly abide by the relevant provisions." Peony laughed as she sat up straight. She tossed the crow feather on the table. "Then I have nothing else to say." Wu Bin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. A bold smile appeared on his face. "Since we're a team, it's best to communicate in time. Being able to point it out like Miss Peony can eliminate many problems." Although he said this, he wasn't willing to let Peony open her mouth again. He indicated that the personal introduction should quickly begin. Immediately, the team members introduced themselves one by one, as well as their positions in the team. Very soon, it was Peony and Long 7's turn. Draconic 7's appearance was rather noble, but he had a sense of community. He took the initiative to introduce himself. "Director Wu mentioned just now that he's mainly interested in my radiation decontamination ability. I won't talk about that. In addition, I've also done some research on firearms and exoskeleton operations." Peony suddenly interrupted him. "What kind of exoskeleton? Military? Police? Or a deep blue walker?" Long Chi smiled and replied, "Anything is fine." "Oh, sorry for my rudeness." Though she said this, Peony wasn't surprised in the slightest. She casually raised her hand, indicating that it was her turn. "As you can see, My special ability is to control birds to carry out wide area reconnaissance. In addition, I can do some intelligence integration and analysis work. It seems like the team already has an intelligence officer. Wu Bin immediately declared, we will definitely cooperate well. Axel Thor is mainly in charge of communication and information sharing. He's a very good assistant. Intelligence officer Axel Thor, who had just introduced himself, stood up once more and greeted Peony. Afterwards, he didn't sit down again. Instead, he followed Wu Bin's intentions and began to introduce the specific information of the operation project. This wasn't just a report to Peony and Draconic 7. The vast majority of the people in the conference room were elites of Trigate Security's operations department. However, they didn't have the authority to inspect certain key information. It was necessary to carry out a comprehensive explanation. The light in the room dimmed, and the projector turned on, projecting a different world inside. The light in the background was that of dusk. The setting sun shone at an angle, and the dark red soil of the desolate plains was folded layer upon layer. It absorbed the multicolored light, like a surging wave of blood that froze in an instant. It piled up into an uncountable number of hills and ravines, extending all the way to the ends of the world. The wilderness. Wave peaks and hills. Draconic 7 muttered. He seemed to be talking to himself, but he also seemed to be deliberately communicating with Peony. Peony turned her head to look at him. You're very familiar with the surrounding terrain of Xia City. I run around once in a while. In the time it took to say 2 or 3 sentences, the aerial image continued to push forward. At the end of the monotonous horizon, the altitude gradually dropped, revealing a blood-colored hilly region. This caused Draconic 7's words to be filled with foresight. The camera gradually locked onto the target. In the skies above the hilly region, countless black dots circled in the dusky sky. They were like a weary flock of birds returning to their nests. But when the camera zoomed in and locked onto an individual, Luo Nan's eyelids twitched even though he was far away in Acumen College's campus. The thing that appeared in the center of the projection wasn't a bird at all. It was more like an ugly and deformed bat. This was a mutant, without a doubt. The body of this bat wasn't large. Its wingspan was around 30 centimeters. Its head was like that of a small canine. Its ears were very large, its teeth were sharp, and its eyes were blood red. Its entire body was covered in grayish-black fur. The most recognizable part was the 4 claws that stretched out from the edge of the membrane-like wings. From a different angle, one could see that this monster had all 4 limbs, and its muscles were knotted together. It looked extremely powerful, and its membrane wings were more like appendages. Intelligence Officer Axel Thew's explanation intervened in time. The wing-hand blood bat is a gregarious mutant. It normally feeds on the blood of large mammals. When it sucks blood, it injects paralysis toxins and various viruses. If the dose is high enough, it can be fatal. Its diet includes humans, as well as its own kind. A large population can be classified as a Class 2 threat. In the wilderness, vagrants generally call it pubula. It's an onomatopoeia, an imitation of the sound it makes when it flaps its wings. He turned on the sound effects as he spoke. The sound of the scene was reproduced with extremely high fidelity. Hundreds and thousands of strange bats circled and danced in the air, emitting a strange sound. It was like a large number of flags fluttering in the wind. It was a continuous stretch. Axel Thew cut out an anatomical diagram at the edge of the projection. Everyone, please take note. The wing-hand blood bat doesn't have a vocal organ. In its normal state, it doesn't make a sound when it flies or eats. It's a terrifying assassin of the night. It only makes a similar sound when it's courting a mate. Of course, they are extremely irritable and sensitive during these times. Their destructive power is at its strongest. As he spoke, a diagram popped up below the anatomical diagram. It seemed like this person's PPT skill was maxed out. The wing-hand blood bat is in heat. When it sucks blood, it injects a virus that is highly contagious and lethal. There have been many records of small to medium-sized vagrant tribes being wiped out by the virus. For example, this place is the ruins of a vagrant tribe that perished. The camera's perspective shifted. One could see that there were some empty holes on top of the hill. They were quite regular, serving as doors and windows. These were the crypts commonly used by vagrant tribes. They were relatively sturdy and had strong concealment. They could avoid the majority of predators in the wilderness. The game 10 Days in the Wilderness had scenes of crypt battles. Even Luo Nan was no stranger to it. It was just that what appeared on the screen was deathly stillness. As the camera switched, a few dried-up corpses appeared amidst the rubble and weeds. Practically every single person's body was curled up. It was easy to imagine that they had experienced a bitter struggle. The conference room was silent. Intelligence Officer Axel Thew continued to explain, "We need to pay special attention to this. According to the latest research, certain mutant wing-hand blood bats have evolved to have limited control over the virus. I don't know if everyone understands what I'm saying." Long 7 interrupted and asked, "Are you saying that the wing-hand blood bat can control whether or not the target is infected?" "No. It's the degree of infection. It might even include the probability of mutation. According to the experimental data of a certain research organization, a single wing-hand blood bat has successfully caused 2 experimental bodies to undergo mutation." Human experiments? Intelligence Officer Axel Thew swept a glance at his boss and shrugged, "The data doesn't show this." He didn't continue on this topic. He just patiently introduced all sorts of habits of the wing-hand blood bat, including the latest results of various research organizations. He didn't even leave out the mutant subspecies. Inevitably, he also explained the routes and areas where this mutant could infiltrate Xia City one by one. Looking back, they spent a total of over 2 hours. Acumen College's morning classes had ended by this time. Trigate Corporation probably felt that it was too long and tedious. All sorts of drinks and fruits were placed on the table. Even Ink was given a cup of water. They waited until the end with great difficulty, but a rather impressive display board appeared on the side of the projection. There were many dark silhouettes and silhouettes on it. They were roughly divided into 4 layers. The top layer was a bit sparse, but the bottom layer was densely packed. There were at least 20 of them. The images of the wilderness and the flock of wing-hand blood bats transformed into a mass of light and entered the first silhouette in the upper left corner. This was the tempo of the conference going on for 2 days. Long 7 couldn't help but shake his head, "It's quite a large scale. Isn't it better to sound the red alert now?" Peony's eyes and lips were smiling, but the meaning behind her words wasn't the same. She didn't expect a direct response from Wu Bin. She directly spoke to her pet, "Mr. Ink, have you woken up?" Ink, who had been a wooden statue for a long time, raised its eyelids. It really did sleep under Luo Nan's orders. It only left a strand of mental clairvoyance to observe its surroundings for Luo Nan to use. Otherwise, with its lively and restless nature, it would have caused a ruckus long ago. "We've already prepared lunch. I asked the 2 experts to honor us." Wu Bin had no choice but to open his mouth to explain as he invited, "The wing-hand blood bats are exceptions." Peony cast a sidelong glance, 3 exceptions. And they're still called exceptions? There were 4 layers of silhouettes on the display board. The topmost layer had a total of 3, including the wing-hand blood bats. The second layer had 5. The third and fourth layers each had 8. There were a total of 24. There was no need to talk about exceptions. Just the fact that 24 mutants had slaughtered their way into Xia City was one of the most serious public safety incidents in the last 30 years. Wu Bin continued to beat around the bush, "The threat of these targets decreases in descending order from the top to the bottom. For this reason, we designed milestones and stage bonuses. The topmost 3 have special prizes." Peony looked straight at Wu Bin's face. "It's great to talk about money, but the government and military rarely engage in this sort of targeted search, right? This way, we can increase efficiency." "Yeah, It saves quite a bit of effort. Mr. Long 7, what do you think? Long 7 crossed his arms over his chest and made an action that wasn't very noble. The level of modern technology is really changing with each passing day. Peony pressed down on the goblet on the table and gave it a slight spin. The blue foam of the drink hung on the wall and spun. She then raised her glass and indicated to Long 7, cheers to the future of the Earth. Chapter 339. It was the turn of autumn and winter. The night increased and the sun shrunk. Half of the afternoon club time had yet to pass, but the sunlight that poured into Acumen College was dyed with a layer of blood. It faintly overlapped with the wilderness in the projection. Luo Nan rode the campus trolley to the auditorium. His eyes were half closed, looking like he was sleeping yet not. Shui Lei didn't care. He had to split his attention. He had been like this all day. But his wristband vibrated for a dozen or so seconds. He could hear the buzzing vibrations from the side, but this bro still didn't respond. What was the meaning of this? In the end, Shui Lei couldn't help but give Luo Nan a push. Someone's calling you. Luo Nan went, ah, and finally came back to his senses. He looked at the contact and picked up the phone. Hello, third brother. The caller was Hu Huaying. The call connected with great difficulty. He asked right away, Nanster, where are you? I'm heading to Gear. Okay. Hurry up and get over here. The construction team is wrapping up their work today. The underground facilities can be considered to have been repaired. They called Old Xia, and Old Xia called me. He asked you to come and check it out. Check it out. Luo Nan felt that it was quite comical. Ever since Gear was damaged by fire last week, it had become a gathering place for all sorts of immortals. There were always 5 or 6 or 7 spies. Check it out for what? Check the amount of intelligence collected by each clan. Of course, this matter had nothing to do with Xie Junping and Hu Huaying. In the end, Luo Nan was too high profile back then. He also displayed extraordinary importance to Gear. Even if there was nothing special about Gear, it would still attract a few glances. Plus, this place wasn't that simple. Luo Nan's mood swayed for a moment before he responded in a low voice. I understand. I'll be there in a moment. Luo Nan hung up and leaned back. He unconsciously furrowed his brows. Shui Lei turned his head to look. You're not having a meeting anymore. Luo Nan grunted. I'm not having a meeting. It's too long. I don't really understand. Actually, his words were a bit insincere. Shui Lei didn't hear it. He was just curious. What did they talk about? It's about mutations, genetic pollution, transmission probabilities, and things like that. Luo Nan used telepathy to inform Peony as he spoke to Shui Lei. He only retained a bit of telepathy to give Inca rain. His attention was completely withdrawn. It was already 4:30 in the afternoon. The meeting had already been going for 7 hours. Luo Nan withdrew, and he subconsciously let out a breath of relief. As time went on, the meeting became more and more involved in various professional discussions. The relevant professional knowledge was too obscure and profound for a high school student. Sometimes, it was like listening to a book from heaven. Forcefully trying to understand it was extremely taxing on the brain, and there were also inaccurate problems. If that was the case, then it would be better to directly listen to the results. The hidden indigo trading firm had arranged it this way. Luo Nan finally understood Zhang Yingying's good intentions. If he followed the pattern of today's meeting, then he wouldn't need to do anything for the next few days. But Luo Nan had to admit that this long meeting really broadened his horizons. The professional knowledge regarding the mutants and the wilderness, as well as the relevant intelligence analysis, were mostly unheard of and unseen. It was all thanks to the remedial classes that he had taken during this period of time. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't even be able to grasp the relevant basic knowledge. Recently, you have to be careful of cats, dogs, birds, bats, and mice. Don't get hurt by them. By the way, there's a recycling stratum in the Twin River district. Pay attention to the people. What's wrong? Virus infection? A plague outbreak? It's not that serious. It doesn't affect normal people too much. It's mainly us. Luo Nan recalled the knowledge he obtained from the meeting and gave Xue Lei a warning. Mutants spread the virus. The stronger and stronger the infected person, the greater the probability of a mutation occurring. Ability users were the most dangerous group. Just like the storm caused by the splitting and spreading of the human-faced arachnid some time ago. Aside from a few unlucky bastards who were close by, normal people practically escaped unscathed. But many ability users of the Xia City branch were controlled by the parasite, causing a huge mess. It was an infection on the mental plane. And for mutants like the wing-hand bat, their toxins and viruses were transmitted through the blood. Enhanced fleshly body users were more likely to attract flies. Xue Lei's teeth ached from hearing this. He grimaced in pain and couldn't help but ask for a few details. Luo Nan acted as the translator. He told Luo Nan the information he knew and selected the ones that were directly related to himself. He only requested that Xue Lei not spread it further and that he remind his family to be careful. It was fine for them to immediately contact the society if any symptoms occurred. Biohazard crisis, huh? Did the city hide it like this? If you didn't say it, there wouldn't have been any news at all. Oh right, is there a problem with you saying these things? I did sign a confidentiality agreement. Luo Nan laughed and waved his hand. The agreement clearly states that the Hidden Indigo firm and its shareholders have the right to know and follow up on relevant developments. They also have the right to notify relevant stakeholders at their discretion. But it shouldn't cause any social impact. Isn't that fine? Social impact? Xue Lei didn't quite understand. Don't go on the various authoritative media outlets. Rumors don't reach a certain scale. This should be fine. Xue Lei let out a sigh of relief, but he couldn't help but laugh in spite of himself. This agreement isn't worth a fart. It can be considered an unequal agreement. This clause was indeed extremely vague. If one were to force the words out, then the scope of knowledge could be expanded limitlessly. The Xia City branch was a shareholder of the Hidden Indigo firm. It was also a relevant public welfare party. And Xue Lei was also a member of the society. There was no problem in terms of legal principles. It was unknown how many times Peony had used this sort of method in the meeting to torment Wu Bin to the point where he wanted to cry but had no tears. This was another harvest of Luo Nan's today. Aside from professional knowledge, it also included methods and techniques for handling matters. Peony, Long 7, Director Wu Bin, Intelligence Officer Axel though, and the others had done a very good demonstration of this. Luo Nan spoke to Xue Lei, expressing his emotions. Swords and blades, killing silently. Just what are these people's brains made of? He truly admired Luo Nan. Luo Nan had experienced many things ever since he entered the inner world. He was always in the eye of the storm, and he was always the target of concentrated fire. There were many times when he needed to be at the forefront, contending against his opponents and negotiating with his teammates. There was no room for buffering. Reality proved that he wasn't a natural leader. To a certain degree, he was even lame. Ever since he was 10 years old, he spent the vast majority of his time in experiments, burying his head in research. His personality was introverted to the point of being autistic. He had no concept of certain things at all. He could only follow his feelings. There were many flaws in his actions, and there were many times when he was courting death. Fortunately, his luck was decent. He had the support of the power bestowed upon him by formatting theory. He also had the help of He Yueyin, Zhang Yingying, and even big shots like Ouyang Chen. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died a violent death on the streets. Instead, he had stumbled his way through life until now. As for today's meeting, Luo Nan stayed behind the scenes, a rare sight. Only a strand of his mind was tied to ink. He kept his mouth shut, only bringing his eyes and ears. His experience along the way was truly pure observation, and he truly benefited from it. This was especially true for Peony and Long 7. Peony had a strong ego, but she was very good at using her beauty to conceal herself. Long 7, on the other hand, was a needle hidden in silk. His sharp and arrogant aura was hidden under his confident and noble words and actions. The two would sometimes oppose each other with equal harshness. Sometimes they would cooperate closely. Even a seasoned character like Wu Bin was brought into the rhythm of the entire meeting. The title of team leader had long since ceased to exist in name. The attraction of this sort of scene was much stronger than the dry classroom teaching. Peony and Long 7 were both in their 20s, but their reserves of knowledge, their behavior, their words, and even their personalities made Luo Nan feel that it was wonderful. He was very envious, and perhaps even a bit inferior. There was a difference of 6 or 7 years in age. Was the difference that big? Would he be able to reach this level if he trained for another 6 or 7 years? All right, it seemed like there was a glimmer of hope. Another call came in just as Luo Nan was describing the situation in the meeting to Shui Lei. This time, the call came from a different channel. It was a vibration from the Hexier. It was Zhang Yingying. After the call connected, this sister excitedly cut to the chase and asked, "Did you shock them?" Shocked. Luo Nan sighed from the bottom of his heart. Your firm is full of elites. That Peony is really amazing. She seems to be from our school. Hey, you jumped into the sea to catch lobsters. Now you're being modest. Don't just praise others. What about you? Me? What else can I do? I was just pretending to be a crow there. Crow my ass. I think you're the one who's lost your mind. Bro, you're the core of this project, okay? It doesn't matter if they're elites or not. If you don't say anything, are they playing hide and seek in Xia City? Zhang Yingying's mood drifted erratically. She had been laughing and joking earlier, but now she was resentful that Luo Nan didn't live up to her expectations. The firm outsourced this project to you because of your mental sensing ability. All the work revolved around you. If our firm wants to finish the work, we might as well throw the money into the sea. At least we can hear the sound of it. Luo Nan didn't know how to respond. This was different from their previous bickering. Zhang Yingying was completely standing on his side. She had said everything that needed to be said. It would be a bit rude for him to refute her. He was silent for quite a while, but Zhang Yingying let out a sigh. She slowed down first. I'm not blaming you. I just feel that this opportunity is very good. It's more or less tailor-made for you. You handled things like a game. You can't treat the invasion of mutants as child's play. Describe. I'm just describing, okay? Haven't you noticed? Your biggest problem is that your heartstrings are too taut. Isn't it just searching for mutants? With your mental sensing ability, you're pretty much the only one in Xia City. Aside from the boss and the president, no one can do it better than you. This is your profession, your domain. You're the authority there. If you don't put on airs now, when will you? Oh my god. Luo Nan's silence spoke volumes. Zhang Yingying couldn't help but look up at the sky and let out a long sigh. You were at Frost River Reality and Ocean Sky Cloud City. Your performance was pretty awesome. You blocked people until they went crazy. You tricked people until they vomited blood. You killed people until they were completely annihilated. You were freaking godlike back then. It's only been a few days. How come you're shrinking more and more? I'm not shrinking. Luo Nan wanted to clear his name. Yes. You're an old man, but you can't keep it up all day long. Is your brain short of blood? Zhang Yingying's mouth was like a machine gun. She suddenly fired shots. Relax. Relax your mind. What are you nervous about? Are you afraid of losing face? Don't talk about your authority. Even if you're a bit flawed, you don't even show your face. So what if you're wrong? That crow is called ink, right? It's just a mask. With it blocking the front, no one knows who you are. You can laugh, you can curse, you can cry, and you can make a fuss. As long as you don't tell them, who will know? Chapter 340. Zhang Yingying stuttered a bit when Luo Nan really asked. She had spoken with a wave of emotion in an attempt to arouse Luo Nan's emotions. She didn't pay attention to what came before and after. She never expected that Luo Nan would be numb to the extreme. He even had the leisure to ask a question. Zhang Yingying had no choice but to make up a story on the spot. Look. People wear masks. They have an extra layer of protection. With protection, it's easier to let go. Isn't there a school of performance that lets people wear masks on stage? That way, the expression of the body is more important. You don't need to worry about your face or your appearance. The audience will naturally imagine things. Isn't it said that imagination is more perfect than reality? Zhang Yingying's logic was already a complete mess when she spoke to this point. Even she had to cover her face. But she never expected that Luo Nan would really be led into the ditch by her. So you're saying that this is a performance and I'm going to manage a new image? This will reduce the pressure. The power of his imagination had exploded. Zhang Yingying's collapsed logic was inadvertently salvaged by Luo Nan. She immediately seized the opportunity and fiercely nodded from the other side. Yeah. Do you see those trolls online? Many of them have high incomes and high education levels. Normally they appear virtuous in front of others. But when they go online, they create sock puppets everywhere. Their mouths are full of shit. This is their way of venting and relieving pressure. Think about it. This is human instinct. Your behavior online is certainly different from your own personality. Luo Nan seriously recalled his online life. Then he answered, there doesn't seem to be any difference. Zhang Yingying took a deep breath. Then she spat out word by word. She gnashed her teeth. Then learn. Learn how others vent. Learn how to let go. Otherwise, you'll collapse sooner or later if you keep being this nervous. You don't need to think about anything else. In the entire firm, only the boss and I know your identity. Even Peony doesn't know. Of course she doesn't know. She's a newcomer. What does she do in your firm? What else can she do? The boss just discovered her recently. He hasn't arranged any specific tasks yet. It just so happens that there's this project. Let her cooperate for a bit. Luo Nan felt as if his heart had been stabbed with a knife. Not only did he not relax, he became depressed. Newcomers are this amazing. What did she do before? Zhang Yingying was getting impatient. That's because the boss has a good eye. He seems to have been observing for a while and only recently recruited him. She's not from the society, nor is she from the church. She has nothing to do with the military. God knows where she came from. She's so mysterious. Oh right, don't let her scare you. She's just an assistant and a messenger. The real decision-maker is you. Luo Nan really wanted to say, you wouldn't think this way if you were participating. But he suddenly felt that something was wrong when the words reached his mouth. It was the same topic, but Zhang Yingying's emotions were much more intense than last Sunday. She was obviously not calm. As soon as this thought arose, the words that came out of his mouth also changed. You don't like this peony too much? Zhang Yingying fell silent. Luo Nan recalled Zhang Yingying's attitude and suddenly realized, you can't be fighting for favor. Jealous of a newcomer? Go to hell. Zhang Yingying was really angry and hung up the call. Luo Nan grunted, but his judgment became firmer. He could judge from Zhang Yingying's character and words that she should have a very special position in the hidden indigo firm. She was doted on by Her Majesty Empress Wu. And the newcomer Peony had suddenly appeared. Her conduct was very brilliant, and her abilities were very strong. She probably gave Zhang Yingying a sense of crisis. These thoughts were very subtle. Perhaps Zhang Yingying herself didn't even realize it, but Luo Nan had rashly pointed it out. Honestly speaking, this was very rude. Hanging up the call was a light punishment. It was good enough that she didn't blacklist him. Luo Nan scratched his head. He began to have a headache about how to apologize to Zhang Yingying. But in the end, he wasn't someone who could speak well. In the end, he could only leave a message on the psychic wave network. I misspoke. I'm sorry. Also, thank you. I understand. Luo Nan assessed himself. The first few words were very clumsy, but they were very sincere. But the last few words had a fake meaning. Understand? The reasoning was clear, but his thoughts were far from clear on how to do it. Most of the time, Luo Nan felt that doing these things didn't have much meaning. Relax? Would relaxing make those enemies who were eyeing him like tigers let go? Would it make his pursuits materialize? If he had the time to mull over this matter, it would be better to calm his heart and do a few more exercises. Suddenly, someone in the car let out a low cry. A muffled bang followed. Something smashed heavily against the car window. This brought about a new, even louder cry. Everyone in the car turned their heads to look. Most of the people in the car were habitually immersed in the internet. They didn't know what was going on outside the window. A guy wearing a baseball cap had already pulled open the window and was cursing into the distance. He even gave a middle finger, stinky feet. If you lose another 0-3, I'll kick your balls. Luo Nan saw clearly that a tram was passing through an open-air stadium. A player who was training lost control of his feet and let a football smash against the car window. This was a small matter, but a portion of the students in the car found a common topic. Someone said to the guy wearing the baseball cap, the Pathfinder team's level this year is insane. They can even lose 0-3 to Yunsheng. Lucky for them, they even found Clark. Clark, that one-man race. He only knows how to run 100 meters along the sidelines. He wants to take the opportunity to practice track and field. How much transfer fee did the track and field club give him? Hey, he ran almost 20 kilometers for the entire game. If you can do it, why don't you go up? Go up and weed. After one lap, the turf will be fine, but his ankle will be broken. That's right. Lando Field is too trashy. It doesn't match the school's position at all. We should find a more responsible sponsor. Is there anyone who wants to sign with me? The atmosphere in the car grew more and more lively. Many people, who had been silent the entire way, broke their silence at this time. They all participated in the discussion of the game. Some students had already signed on the school's message board. Some took the opportunity to collect the contact numbers of female students. They gained quite a lot. Luo Nan didn't care about this at first. He raised his eyes and wanted to return to his own mental world. But at this time, he saw Shui Lei. He was also exchanging contact numbers with someone. They were discussing topics related to Clark's level. Luo Nan was inexplicably horrified. You know that guy? Of course I know. Clark? Kembo, the sports star of the school. He's a lightning bolt on the field. Rumor has it that he'll soon be selected for the City United team. I saw him compete at the beginning of school. His feet aren't as rough as others say. Shui Lei responded as if it was a matter of course. Then he was horrified. You don't know. There are posters of him all over the school building right now. Luo Nan gaped. He looked at the chattering peers on the car, and his heart inexplicably sank. Several seconds later, he opened his mouth and asked, "You know what a jungle owl is too?" "Of course. Our school's team plays 10 days in the wilderness. They lost miserably in the fall competition last month." "You met someone from the jungle owl?" "Who?" "No." Luo Nan muttered a few words in response. He turned his head, and his gaze passed through the window, unconsciously sweeping the campus. Shui Lei was confused. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I just feel like I'm quite a homebody." Luo Nan laughed and didn't say anything more. Actually, he had lied once again. His evaluation of himself right now couldn't be described as a homebody. Shui Lei concentrated on fighting. Peony was employed at the hidden indigo firm. The businesses they engaged in were a certain distance away from the world of normal people. But they didn't lose their perception of their surroundings. Luo Nan was far too boring in comparison. The trolley slowly arrived at the auditorium station. Students and passengers got on and off the trolley, and the topic of football had already vanished into thin air. It was as if nothing had happened. Luo Nan deliberately turned his head to look after getting off the trolley. Soon, his line of sight cut into the lively surroundings of the auditorium. He had been training his eyes orifice here a week ago. He was very familiar with every blade of grass and every tree. He had an idea of how many steps there were. The faces of the people who often moved around here were even a bit familiar to him. But that was all. After all, these were only his temporary observation targets. Deeper information was meaningless. Luo Nan had always understood things this way. But when he returned here today, he suddenly had a feeling he was incompatible with this auditorium, with the surrounding plaza, and even with the entire campus. He was like this 2 months ago when he first entered the school. He was still like this now. This feeling wasn't too good. Luo Nan and Shui Lei didn't waste any time. They directly entered the forest on the outskirts of the north bank. They made a few turns, and they arrived in front of Gear. The smell of smoke and fire from back then still lingered in this place. The construction team had already finished today's work by this time. They withdrew one after another, and the place became a bit more lively. Hu Huaying was already waiting in the lobby by the time Luo Nan arrived. Aside from him, the supervisor and the project manager were all here. It looked like they were treating today as an official inspection. Hu Huaying immediately introduced them to Luo Nan. Luo Nan nodded in greeting, but he didn't have any intentions of going deep into the conversation. He didn't immediately start the inspection either. Instead, he asked about Xie Junping. In the past, the young master of the Xie family was always at the forefront. Luo Nan really did miss him a bit when he was suddenly not around. With him here, they could chat a few dirty jokes. Wouldn't it be lively? Old Xie has been quite mysterious lately. It's probably because he's playing around with Sissy Du he's fasting and cultivating. Luo Nan accidentally heard the biggest joke in Xia City. He couldn't help but grin. Hu Huaying couldn't help but laugh as well. He wakes up at 6 in the morning and sleeps at 9 in the evening. He's persisted for 5 days. Oh, this isn't simple. But having a regular lifestyle is a good thing. It looks like he's persevering. The Sissy Du that Hu Huaying mentioned was the former president of the Mystic Arts Research Society, Duyong. Luo Nan had only met him once, so he wasn't too familiar with him. He just knew that Duyong was a bit neurotic, but he was a decent person. They chatted idly for a bit before talking about gear. The project manager maintained his silence this entire time. The supervisor explained things to Luo Nan, but Luo Nan didn't really listen. It was nothing more than equipment installation and wiring, maintenance of various systems, and so on. Luo Nan grunted and grunted in response. He wasn't a professional, so he was entrusted to the supervisor according to the contract. However, it wasn't just the construction team. The supervisor's spy operation was also flying. Chapter 341. Luo Nan recognized that gear was currently attracting flies. In Acumen College, gear possessed a bit of a mysterious color. Even Xie Junping, a layman, had heard of names like the Ritual Society. He said that it was very suitable for carrying out mystic rituals. Then there was Luo Nan. It was hard for the professionals and experts to not feel that something was fishy. Actually, the Xia City branch had already made an assessment before the spies from all walks of life flooded in. They also said that the structure of the building was out of the ordinary. As for where the specific beauty lay, they were unable to come to a conclusion for a while. Because of this, He Yueyin suggested that Luo Nan follow the principle of opening up is better than blocking, and let the spies in first. This way, they could not block everything and let the people from all walks of life speculate in their hearts. The matter of headquarters could serve as a warning. This was a smart method, but it was also a cowardly move. Luo Nan acted according to He Yueyin and the others' instructions for a week. He turned a blind eye to the spies' actions on the surface, but in reality, he was fretful in his heart. He could not stop the spies from all sides. He could only swallow his anger, but this did not mean that Luo Nan would treat the spies well. He already had a plan in mind. He let the supervising engineer do as he pleased and let him wander around the underground space. He did not express any opinions or emotions for over half an hour. The sky was already dark. The supervising engineer and the project manager were completely unable to grasp Luo Nan's pulse. They were unable to continue. Hu Huaying could roughly see Luo Nan's attitude at this time. She stood up and said a few words, sending the supervising engineer and the project manager away. After waiting for the outsiders to get lost, Hu Huaying asked, "Nanster, is this project not to your liking?" Luo Nan shook his head. "I don't understand professional matters, but there's nothing to be dissatisfied with. Let them continue to repair it. You know, this place is of great importance to me. It would be fine if nothing happened, but if something did happen, I need to take some precautions. When that happens, I won't be able to find outsiders." Old Xie said that this construction didn't restore the previous defense system. He wanted you to personally design it. You certainly don't lack professionals. Hu Huaying giggled, more or less flattering him. Last week at Ocean Sky Cloud City, he saw with his own eyes how the arrogance of the young master of the He family was suppressed. No, he wasn't suppressed. The flames were extinguished on their own. The group of people surrounding Luo Nan were all very mysterious. Perhaps they had great backgrounds. Especially He Donglo's older sister. According to their later understanding, she really was He Donglo's older sister. She had just retired from the special forces and returned home. Who would have thought that she and Luo Nan would play together? In the past, she was a bit puzzled by Xie Junping's attitude of trying to befriend Luo Nan in every possible way. But now, it was different. If he was given a chance, he would be 10 times more enthusiastic than Xie Junping. No matter what was said or done, the Xie family was still the #1 business group in Xia City. The Hu family was a level lower. If the Hu family worked hard to catch up, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Hu family worked 10 times as hard as they could. At this point, he had another thought. Old Xie didn't take good care of this person and instead went to play mysticism with Sissy Du. Was he relying on his relationship with him to stabilize, or was he trying to cater to his preferences in another direction? While he was thinking, they walked out of the fire escape and entered an open space. The light was dim. There were no lights to illuminate the place. A dark and gloomy sky hovered above their heads. Hu Huaying had been leaning here for several days now. She had a clear understanding of the architectural layout of gear and the maintenance process. She swept a glance and said, "The atrium here is a bit messy. It's hard to avoid some junk falling down during the repairs. We have to wait until the end to clean it up." Luo Nan grunted and raised his head to look up. Gear had 7 floors underground, 4 floors above ground, and a half-sealed rooftop. There were a total of 12 floors. Right now, they were on the lowest floor, looking at the ceiling of the atrium that was several dozen meters high. The architectural layout of Gear was different from the vulgar. Only an architect or an insider like Luo Nan could understand how extraordinary it was. And the directions and angles were all different. However, for many people, the deepest impression they had of Gear was the almost paranoid circular, stacked nested structure inside Gear. And the most eye-catching of the series of structures was the perfectly straight atrium that connected all the floors before Luo Nan's eyes. The atrium of Gear was different from most similar structures. The atrium of Gear was located on the westernmost side of the building. Its edge was the outer wall of the building. Its height exceeded 50 meters, and the area it occupied wasn't small. If the lighting wasn't turned on and the angle of sunlight wasn't suitable, the pitch-black hole would be very frightening when looking down from above. Thinking about it in a crooked way, this was a good place to commit suicide. The outer wall of the atrium was surrounded by high-strength bulletproof glass, most likely to prevent similar situations from occurring. Every floor didn't leave a single gap. Jumping down really required skill. Luo Nan stood at the bottom of the atrium and raised his head to look at the sky. He could see the evening sky. The dusky sky was smeared with colorful paint. Aside from a sliver of the setting sun, the only thing that could be seen was the lights of the metropolis. The atrium had a diameter of 12 meters. It was already extremely spacious, but due to the height issue, it appeared rather slender no matter what angle one looked at it from. Only when one reached the bottom and personally experienced it would one know just how enormous this space was. Luo Nan smiled at Shui Lei. You can train here every day. The air isn't stuffy, right? When it rains, you can seal off the rooftop. It's more convenient than outside. I can give it a try. Shui Lei grinned. He had been treating himself as a bodyguard ever since he entered Gear. He didn't utter a single word and was extremely vigilant. He even operated the testing equipment provided by the society in secret, in case the construction team left behind some things that couldn't see the light of day. Right now, he was chatting with Luo Nan, and he finally relaxed. He imitated Luo Nan and raised his head to look at the sky. He suddenly had a strange thought: the rooftop ceiling platform should also be made of glass. It's like an astronomical telescope. Actually, it does have this function. Hu Huaying remembered that there was information about this in the information. She immediately showed off: it can be realized through an internal mounting module. The equipment room is on the 6th floor underground. Of course, special lenses are needed. The modification can be completed in an hour. Of course, this telescope can't be turned. It can only look at a small area above our heads. An hour? Shui Lei was a bit moved. He really wanted to see it. Hu Huaying hurriedly added, it can't be done now. This function was remodeled in 91. Not long after it was completed, the order club collapsed. The newly purchased equipment was completely sold off. They lost several $100,000 after depreciation. Are you playing with me? Shui Lei rolled his eyes. Before he could say anything, Luo Nan sneered, drawing legs on a snake. Hu Huaying was stunned. Honestly speaking, she didn't understand what Luo Nan meant by these words. But it didn't affect her from echoing, so, the snake's claws have been chopped off. Luo Nan didn't say anything. He looked up at the night sky above his head in silence. It was unknown where his thoughts drifted. Hu Huaying and Shui Lei locked gazes. They were just about to speak when Luo Nan raised his arm to look at his wristband. His brows furrowed. Someone's looking for me. Third bro, you chat with Shui Lei first. I'm going to take a call. Hu Huaying really wanted to agree. Then she would drag Luo Nan and Shui Lei out for a meal and a game to strengthen their friendship. But she thought about it again. Luo Nan had an introverted temperament. He couldn't be impatient when it came to making friends. This was to avoid going overboard. She immediately said, you go do what you need to do. I won't stay any longer. Sure enough, Luo Nan didn't urge her to stay. He nodded and thanked her once more. Then he hurriedly walked into the fire escape passageway. It looked like this was a very private call. Shui Lei and Hu Huaying rode the elevator together to send Luo Nan off. Soon, peace was restored in the atrium. Luo Nan waited for the elevator to go up. He didn't turn on his wristband as he stood in the fire escape passageway. Instead, he squinted his eyes, and his telepathic thoughts leaped out. He arrived at a business hotel several dozen kilometers away. His temporary partner, Peony, had used the rubber band to give Ink a special stimulation. Luo Nan sensed it. As for the reason, it was very simple. The meeting was adjourned. Luo Nan looked at his watch. It was around 6 o'clock in the evening. The meeting had been going on for nearly 9 hours. Peony walked into the elevator with Ink still holding onto her shoulder. They looked quite compatible. But it was different from when they came. There was another person in the elevator. It was none other than Long Seven. The two didn't have any intentions of communicating further. Long Seven was paying more attention to Ink in the elevator. He exited the elevator and went to the underground parking lot. He walked straight to the front row of parking spaces. There was a supercar there. It wasn't low-key at all. Luo Nan vaguely remembered that this was where old Jin parked his car. Where did the man and the car go? Old Jin's commoner SUV drove in right when he was baffled. It flashed its lights twice and stopped in front of Peony at the elevator entrance. Clearly, he hadn't waited a day in vain. He had bought a Big Mac from who knows where, and he was eating it with relish. Peony let Ink go to the front passenger seat while she sat in the back. Old Jean opened the window, dispersing the smell in the car. Then the car started, but he heard Long Seven call out at this time. "See you tomorrow." Peony waved her hand rather reservedly, and the car soon drove out of the underground parking lot. Only now did Peony get down to business. She spoke quickly, "The meeting will continue tomorrow. I will send the relevant information and meeting records to the internal cloud space. Please check and receive them." Luo Nan actually wanted to seriously ask about the situation at the meeting, but he thought of Zhang Yingying's previous attitude. He hesitated a bit, but in the end, he didn't say much. The car entered a state of silence. Now it was old Jin's turn to ask, "Where do I get off?" Luo Nan remembered that Peony seemed to be someone from Acumen College. It was impossible for this woman not to be suspicious when he got off the car with her. Since the firm couldn't hide his true identity, he might as well play it to the end. "I'll leave once we're out of the parking lot. Then see you tomorrow." No one exchanged pleasantries. They waited for the car to drive onto the main road, and Ink jumped out of the car. It spread its wings and flew into the night sky. At the same time, Luo Nan logged into the cloud space over at Gear. He looked through the meeting records. He had gotten the relevant documents from Trigate Corporation. This company did things fairly properly. At the very least, the meeting records were clean and clear. Peony even marked them one by one, highlighting the key points. Luo Nan really didn't know where she got the energy and time. Aside from the information, she even wrote a short report, introducing the situation of the participants. The focus of attention was naturally Long Seven. Peony had already come to a preliminary conclusion, but the point of entry was that fashionable ear. In Peony's report, the earring was made from some sort of superplastic memory alloy material. It could greatly deform under high temperatures. It was a mechanical key favored by burners. In other words, Long Seven was very likely to be a deep blue walker. Plus, this person was relatively familiar with Xia City. He also had the special ability of radiation decontamination. Peony had already locked onto her target. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.